Seeing none, motion passed. Jim, and you'll make your comments and we'll have a resolution.
For the record, no action was taken in executive session.
Okay, we did have a very fruitful discussion during executive session with respect to Keith Bly and having him come and join us. So at this point in time, Keith, just to give you ease of mind, we'd like to put on the resolution 2021-108. Now that's for deputy building inspector employment. And do I have a motion for that?
I'll make a motion for that.
Second.
Okay, any comments? Jim, do you?
So the resolution that was sent to the town clerk had blanks in it. So,
So they're going to put Keith Bly on that.
Yeah.
Keith Bly. And it's
Keith
Last
Bly.
name is B-L-I-G-H. Sorry, Jim.
G-H.
Got that, Joe? Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Okay, hold on one second. Let me.
So under the one, it's the same as the whereas. And what's the effective date of appointment?
It would be as of
2 weeks, right?
2 weeks.
2 weeks from today?
It would be the 7th, 6th is a holiday.
Okay.
Tuesday,
Yep.
September 7th.
Tuesday, September 7th, as the effective date under one. The name is on number 2 again.
3 and 4.
Number 3 is the name.
Same thing with 4.
Number 5 is the name. I believe that's all the blanks, right?
Yeah, there's 5 blanks, that's correct.
So on the question, just want to say it was a pleasure interviewing Mr. Bly, who comes from the private sector with an extensive background in building renovation and associated backgrounds and a degree in architecture. So we certainly look forward to working with Mr. Bly on our team.
And is a resident of the town.
And is
He
a
and his
resident of
family
the
are
town.
residents here.
And recently has a son. Congratulations.
Yeah, congratulations.
So we had a motion and second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any nays or abstentions? Seeing none, motion passed. Thank you. Congratulations, Keith.
Congratulations.
Okay, next item is we're going to go into a public hearing on the establishment of the Chelsea Farms Drainage District. Do I have a motion to open the public hearing?
So moved.
I'll second it.
Motion and second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any nays or abstentions? Seeing none, motion passed. Do we have any public discussion on this particular topic?
So the applicant's engineer and attorney are in the audience. If anyone wants a presentation.
Well, yeah, why don't you come up? Where's the easel? And if you want to put the easel, and I failed to acknowledge that Tim Moot is on Zoom. Tim had trees down, electricity, power problems, so he was not able to make it, but he is on a Zoom call, which Tom is managing. Yeah, come on up, identify yourself, and then Joey's going to impale our town clerk if he's not careful.
I'll start. Dan Kohler with Hudson Land Design. We're the engineer for the applicant.
You're pointed toward the board, but we have a camera that can pick it up for the public.
There you go.
I'll just introduce myself, George Lithgow from Jacobitz and Gubbitz, project attorney. I'll turn it back to Dan.
So I believe that you were discussing this last month when this was first introduced. And basically, the drainage district is associated with the Chelsea Farm subdivision, which is off of Chelsea Road and River Road North here in the town. Can't see very well. And so there's 17 lots that are proposed on the 180 acres there. The subdivision calls for a new town road, which will serve as access to 13 of the lots. And associated with that are a series of catch basins, swales, bioretention areas, stormwater management ponds, as part of meeting the stormwater pollution prevention process through the town. So in order for the town to create a financial mechanism in order to pay for those, for the maintenance of all of those stormwater management, the drainage district would be formed so that the levy could be assessed to each of those homes annually. So I think that's a little bit of a explanation of why we're here. So if there's any specific questions, I'd be happy to try to answer them for you.
Angela, since
No,
it's in your
I-
ward? Okay.
I'm well aware of this
Yeah,
project.
Yep.
Just catch me up on this. This is off of which main thoroughfare?
Chelsea.
Chelsea.
Road.
Chelsea Road?
Chelsea, yeah.
And then there's a portion, there's one lot off of, one or two lots off of River Road,
There's two.
two lots.
Okay.
Before you get to the lumberyard.
Oh, I got you. Okay. Thank you.
It's been a long time coming, this project.
It
Yeah,
has.
yeah, it is, and changed a lot, which is for the better. And Walter Artis is familiar with this? Have you approached him yet?
Absolutely, yeah.
Yep.
He was involved during the whole review
Right.
process through the planning board.
Yeah, he mentioned he had taken a
Right.
good look at it, so.
And it was 13 lots, you said?
It's
17.
13 of the 17 that
Okay,
would be
are in the
benefited
district.
by the
Yes.
drainage district.
So 17 on 180 acres?
Yes.
Okay,
Right.
thank you.
Because of
Okay.
the slope and everything, they can't fit.
Yeah,
They
well,
wanted more, but
Yeah.
Sounds comfortable.
can't do it.
Right,
so.
okay.
And they'll have their own wells.
I'm sorry?
They will have their own wells.
Yes.
Okay,
Very good.
thank you.
Okay,
Appreciate you showing
very
us.
good, thank you. Any other public comments?
Make a motion to close the public.
Second.
Second, motion and second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any nays or abstentions? Seeing none, motion passed. Thank you, gentlemen, and good luck.
If I may,
Yes.
the board, there was a resolution that was handed up. It should have been printed out and put on the dais. This is the
Yes.
order actually creating the district.
Oh, okay.
Right.
So I think it's not on,
Officially.
it missed the agenda.
Ah.
Okay.
So it needs to have a resolution number added to it, but since you're adding it to the agenda, it might be vote on that right now.
Right, no, that's okay with me, and you'll be able to put the number. Okay.
have it already.
You have it
Okay.
already? Okay.
I make a
Everybody else
motion
have
to
a
approve.
Okay.
This resolution.
Second.
Okay, motion and second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any nays or abstentions? Seeing none, motion passed. Thank you again,
Thank you.
gentlemen.
Thank you again.
Thank you.
Joe, so that's going to be 111? Okay.
Okay. Okay, so we have a motion to adjourn the public meeting. I
Public hearing.
guess it's public hearing, yeah.
Move.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any nays or abstentions? Seeing none, motion passed. Okay, next item is the public portion of the meeting. That is to receive any public comments with respect to any of the other items on the agenda.
I'll make a motion to open public hearing.
Second.
Okay, motion second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any nays or abstentions? Seeing none, motion passed. If anyone has any, comments they'd like to present, please come up to the podium and state your name and your address.
Okay, seeing none, I move that we close the
I'll
public
second it.
hearing, please.
Motion and second to close the public portion of the meeting. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any nays or abstentions? Seeing none, the motion passed. Thank you. The next item in our first of several on discussions is it's a great honor to welcome Alex Reese and also Karen up to the podium to introduce to us, I think, some very exciting news that's been coming for a while, but as you know, the town board has put a lot of effort into its attempts to preserve our open spaces, our land, our conservation areas. Alex is one of our great neighbors here in the town and benefactors to so many things. He's absolutely doesn't like me to talk about him, but I feel I must, because he has taken in his mother and his family's image, but gone beyond, I think, what they've wanted, looked for, as far as trying to preserve in a very important part of our town. And I think what is going to be presented tonight is extremely exciting, the beginning of a process, but Alex and I and Karen, we've met Barbara, Bruce Fowler, Bill Beal is very much aware and involved in this. And also it's going to be very much beneficial, to the town. And I won't take the thunder from him, but I certainly can add on later on as far as the ways that it also helps us to address the comprehensive plan, actually. So Alex, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Dick. I don't know what to say to all that, but thank you. My name is Alex Reese. I live at 89 New Hamburg Road, and I own and operate Ober Creek Farm, which farms on land called Ober Creek, which is owned partially by myself, about 40 acres, and the rest is owned by Ober Creek LP, which is myself, my brother, my sister, and my sister-in-law. Sadly, two brothers have passed away. I've been very much exploring ways to keep as much of this land open and to see whether we can have Ober Creek Farm as a resource and asset of the town for the future. And it was with great excitement that I had a conversation with Duchess Land Conservancy. Duchess Land Conservancy is one of the foremost land conservancy organizations in this state. It's conserved over 40,000 acres, mainly in Duchess County, but most of their interest has been east of the Conic Parkway and the north, and not to say that they haven't snooped around. They put easements on Fishkill Farm, and they hold easements on Sprout Creek Farm, but nothing in the town of Wappinger. So I was very excited about the conversation that I was started with them, and excited on two lines. First, they're very safe holders of agricultural easements. They have a great record of enforcement and making sure that things are the way that they should be. And for the land that I own around my main house and the ag fields next to that, I wanted to donate that to them as a gift to hold. But what we're going to talk today about is an application to New York State for purchase of development rights on 140 extra acres, which are owned by my brother and sister-in-law, and they don't live here, and they're part of the inheritance, so their interests must be honored. And this was a way to take a step toward doing that. And it's an application that goes to the state, and the state has a program that can fund the purchase of development rights for important agricultural lands. And so with that, I wanted to introduce Karen Rue, who's a big star with Duchess Land Conservancy, also has worked with New York Ag and Markets, and is one of the leaders in DLC on producing these purchase of development rights. So, Karen.
Thank you, Alex. Thank you very much for the opportunity to speak with you this evening. I know that I emailed materials. I did bring printouts if anyone would like those to have in front of you at the moment, or...
Sure, I'll take one.
Great.
Yeah.
Well, then I'll just...
I would just
you
give it to
get
all
Just
of
get all of
us.
us, please.
Right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you.
So, yes, so my name is Karen Rue. I'm with the Duchess Land Conservancy. I'm the Director of Land Projects. And just to sort of step back and talk a little more about the Duchess Land Conservancy and what we do. The organization is a not-for-profit organization. We were founded in 1985, centered right now in the town of Millbrook, but we do work throughout Dutchess County and even a little bit into southern Columbia, but the vast majority of all of our work is in Dutchess County. Our conservation work really focuses on working with private landowners. So we hold conservation easements on lands of over 44,000 acres within the county of Duchess. And as Alex said, a lot of that is sort of central and northern and eastern. We have had wonderful opportunities to work with Fishkill Farms and a couple other large farms here in the area, and the opportunity to work with the Reese family is absolutely tremendous. Cornell Cooperative Extension did this wonderful agricultural profile of each of the towns, and apparently in the town of Wappinger, only 9% of the lands are farmed. So the opportunity to be able to protect Ober Creek Farm, not just because of its agricultural integrity, but it is such a prolific farm and has such an incredible place within the heritage of this town and of this area, not to mention the natural resources, its placement along the Wappinger Creek. Just a little bit about what a conservation easement is. Conservation easement is an agreement that is between the Land Conservancy and the landowner. That is completely voluntary, and it really gets at use of a property, so that in looking at a piece of land, the landowner and the DLC would designate areas on that property that are appropriate for development, for a house, accessory agricultural structures to be built in areas that are not going to have a negative impact on natural resources, while still allowing the landowner to be able to utilize their property in the way that they have been, and in a way that works well into the future, while safeguarding all of the natural resources like streams and wetlands and steep slopes and agricultural soils. Alex did mention that he is interested in donating an easement on a portion of his own lands that he owns as an individual. That is a lot of what we do. And then in some cases, similar to what Ober Creek Farm offers, we can actually apply to public sources of funding for monies to actually purchase the development rights of those farms, which enables those landowners to take a little bit of the real estate equity from their property and still hold on to it. Often it's invested in the property, and can help sustain the property going forward, and any changes that the landowners want to make, either in ownership or in operation of the farm. So we are very, very excited to be able to submit an application. It's a qualifying application to this new round of funding offered by the New York State Department of Agriculture and Markets. It's their Farmland Protection Implementation Grants Program. And this will enable us to get funds to be able to compensate the family for up to 75% of the value of the development rights, which is calculated by an appraiser. And then we are intending to apply to Dutchess County for the remaining 25%. The state does require that for any qualifying application, we do have to have a letter of endorsement from the town. Although we're very happy to have the conversation with the town, this is sort of what has sparked our being here tonight. So maybe a little bit about the farm property and what our plan is for the site plan. I have Vanna right. This front one, sorry. The front map here just shows the location of the farm property. Unfortunately, I apologize. I did not get the entire property outlined on there, but you can see there it's at the very western portion of the town. And is along the Wappinger Creek. It's adjacent to a town park, which was donated by the Reese family, and is opposite other conserved lands on the other side of the Wappinger Creek, which I believe is the Reese Audubon Sanctuary. So Being able to protect lands at this point does really help with protecting water quality, as this is direct drainage into the Wappinger Creek, as well as it also contains a tributary to the Wappinger Creek on the property.
Question, the Autobahn on the town of Poughkeepsie side, that was originally Reese property also, or was it connected to your family at some point?
It was, yes, that was, I think, purchased in early 1900s.
Okay, so that's interesting. They'll be adjacent to each other.
Yeah, yeah. The family clearly has a long history in land conservation, and this is one more step up that.
Thank you.
This zooms into the farm property. We are working on proposing a conservation easement for a 144-acre portion of the total property, at least the purchase of development rights component, the PDR component. A big part of what attracts, what makes a property qualify for ag and markets funding is firstly, definitely an operating farm operation, but then also high quality agricultural soils. And so as you can see on this property, there is a high density of prime soils, which are the dark brown overlaid, and then the gold is soils of statewide importance, which are sort of two types of soils that are in the upper echelon of being able to provide for crops being grown. It speaks to the depth of the soils and low rockiness and flat lands, things like that.
I'm not sure that fully describes some of this land, but.
I know, I do get that sometimes. They are remotely mapped by the USDA, so they're not always 100% accurate, but they do give a good idea. And often you can actually trace where the lands are being farmed just by the soils. It's really interesting, that overlay. So in terms of our site plan, so here you can see the entire property. There are some excluded lands, sort of the central portion around Alex's home, that 42 acres. This is the portion of land that Alex himself has been working with the DLC on donating a conservation easement. The lands that are in white are part of the Ober Creek community, which is some existing house lots and some newly created house lots. And then the green, which a lot of it runs along the Wappinger Creek, and then also is part of the woodlands off Creek Road. Those are just non-farmed properties and don't pertain to the farm. And then off Route 9D and is that New Eden Road, there is a portion of land being excluded there for a potential future use by the town. So in all, we're left with 144 acres on which we propose the right to be able to sell those 144 into 4 separate farm units in the future. The red boxes that you see there are farmstead areas. They're clustered around existing structures on at least one of the properties where the existing farm store is and a house, and then on the others where we believe are suitable locations for future residences and agricultural structures to be built. All of this is still subject to zoning. The remainder of the property is considered farm area, and on that they can still build some agricultural structures, but it's much more limited than within the farmstead area. Once the conservation easement is in place, the landowner, still retains their rights to be able to sell the property, lease the property, convey it to their heirs. They are still subject to paying full school, town, county taxes as they would have before. There's no change there. So the property still continues to be an active, enrolled part of the town, but is now conserved so that any future development is very limited, very targeted, and the conservation easement is really limits a lot of commercial use other than agriculture and potentially some forestry in the woodlands areas. So in looking through the conservation comprehensive plan for the town, protection of the farm property does fit with the priorities of the comprehensive plan. The plan does speak to targeting open space preservation. It actually names Reese Farm, which is a former name of the Ober Creek Farm. And it really does speak to that if we were to have a conservation easement on this property, that would really directly preserve a site that the town has identified as having significance. It's also located in a zoning district that emphasizes the need to preserve open space and have low density use. And so having a conservation easement really makes that perpetual. So that is my request then, to see if the town would consider providing us with a letter of endorsement. I did provide a sample letter
Yes.
that I think includes notes that the state would be looking for. Obviously, it's not you don't have to use that as is, but it would be sort of just a suggested start.
So
Yeah,
we
I-
have in our package, I guess, I'm sorry, were you going to say something?
No, I said I've looked at it, and I think it's more adequate. It's a fine letter. You had mentioned to me, I think it needs to be filed soon? Yeah,
Yes,
in order to meet the state funding guidelines, so that's why we're meeting tonight, in
Yes.
large part.
Yeah, usually the state, when they release these rounds, they have a deadline by which these have to be submitted. For this one, they actually don't have a deadline. It's a rolling application, but they have a limit on funding available, and it's very much a first come, first serve. So we're, as long as it's a qualifying farm.
Right.
So we're really hopeful to get this in as soon as we can.
So there isn't an official resolution, but we do have something here that we
We have an
received.
official resolution, yes.
So I don't know if this is on the agenda for the resolution, but we can always make one like we've
Yeah.
done in the past.
Jim's, since we got this, after the agenda went out, so Jim's,
Right.
done this resolution, and he and I have talked and looked at the letter,
do you-
and it seems to be in order.
Do you need a motion or anything to?
Yeah.
We just
put
had
it-
one question regarding with respect to the transfer development rights. If the town would require an easement for water or sewer infrastructure, would the conservation easement prevent that?
That's a good question. There are limitations on being able to convey additional restrictions on the property, but that is definitely something that, because it would be of benefit, a public benefit, we can definitely work on ensuring that would be, that the easement wouldn't be a speed bump
Because
on that. or-
the one issue, the reason why I raise it is that under the eminent domain law, New York State eminent domain proceedings law, a municipality may not condemn an easement for sewer in an agricultural district.
Yeah. But Alex and I had discussed
no,
it,
I
and
know.
the property
So,
he's retaining, addresses it.
Right.
There is I do have an easement, which I'm going to hold for the connecting New Hamburg and Marlborough Road.
Yeah, no, the bigger,
And then also Marlborough and going into
Respawn.
Fort
The big pipe.
okay, good.
Yeah.
That's the only,
Yeah.
that was the question.
Now, I
That's-
don't know, actually, we haven't defined that where it is, and I'm not sure whether we have to,
Yeah.
part of the, or we can, if that makes
Right.
sense. And sewer lines are pretty deep, so I plan to
Yeah, that's
go
fine.
over it with a rake.
I can definitely work with the
Sure.
program manager on
No, I mean, and
identifying
it could be
what if
coordinated with the
Right.
transfer
needed.
development,
Yeah.
right? So I would think that to the extent that the easement was conveyed before the development rights were transferred, I think it would be fine. I don't,
What's the timing, Karen, in terms of when the state would make an award and when the easement would actually be put in place?
Great question. I think we're looking at a minimum of 18 months, because it will take a few months for the state to, typically it does, this is a little bit of an unusual round, but it usually takes a few months for them to make an announcement. And then from there, we usually say it's at least a year, because we do have to do our own due diligence of surveying work, going through any title work that would be related to that. And there's a, and then, yeah, I think it would be very safe to say about 18 months.
Sure.
Right, right. One of the questions I asked Karen, earlier, when we met, and, can give an answer to the board, is that we've had some issues in the town with ag areas that are, constructing their own businesses. And I understand you have a very strict program for enforcing the conservation easements to make sure that non-approved, non-farm businesses don't get established in here, like a concrete mixing plant or something like that, correct? You would work with the town. I mean, we've had to coordinate with like 20 agencies in this one situation, one problem that we have. So, just maybe briefly describe to the board how you enforce and what you do with easements.
Yeah. So the easement does limit commercial use to agricultural and forestry. There are some other smaller commercial uses permitted within the farmstead area. Things like home office, arts and crafts, firewood distribution, things like that that help a farmer continue with any operating costs, cover operating costs to carry the property. Outside of that, we do have a very strict enforcement of not permitting business uses that would be in violation of the conservation easement. And so we do monitor the properties every year. We do an on-site as well as aerial monitoring. And our stewardship staff have a direct line to our attorney, and any issues are brought directly to our attorney. We have, it's very rare to get to a point of litigating. Our organization works very, very closely with landowners to, really identify non-compliant uses as early as possible, and kind of really nip a lot of things in the bud before they get too far down the line. So, and certainly as needed, if a town identifies something and comes to the DLC
Right.
and says there is a use that you're not aware of, then definitely we would appreciate that and work with the town.
Yeah.
Does
So
that answer?
the resolution that we have before us, which I don't know who prepared it, but Jim, you did prepare this one? Oh, okay. So certainly my position would be that the Ober Creek Farm is certainly in harmony with the town of Wappingers comprehensive plan, and this will further solidify that relationship. I think the fact that Mr. Reese found the Duchess Land Conservancy is a blessing. Full disclosure, I spent over 30 years of my life living on Ober Creek Farm, so just so it's out there. First on New Hamburg Road, and then secondly in Mrs. Reese's sister's house on Marlville Road. So I am biased, obviously, but I've disclosed that. The point is that Alex has a passion for maintaining the character of this particular area, the Houstonville area, and growing up in Houstonville myself and living there and being involved on a daily basis in that particular area, and dealing with Mr. Reese regularly, I know that it's very important to him and his family to maintain this area and maintain the vision. So I think it would be appropriate for us to express our full support with this application between Duchess Land Conservancy and Ober Creek entities to the New York State Department of Agriculture and Markets Farmland Protection Implementation Grants Program, and I'll move this resolution.
I'll second it.
Okay. Before we do, I'd like to just address one point that Alex made, and this is for the board. This is respect to, again, another part of the generous, working with the town, and also, with respect to Houstonville. And this is what's reflected on the map. But Alex had mentioned that he's, willing to work with us and, discuss the, an easement, the donation, whatever we end up wanting to call it. So,
Just blame it on Joey.
yeah, I'll blame the county historian.
It was perfectly fine.
But,
So-
what we've again, is how to really grow and improve Houstonville. I mean, we've been spending several years in looking at that. So Alex has part of the land that could be reserved, and Joey's showing it. We have a big, field here, along with, also an entrance into New Hamburg Road. It's in the red, that we're looking at as a combination of new parkland, town center, since the town doesn't have a center, perhaps a community center, and Bill and I and the Houstonville Fire Department are talking about where we relocate the building, that may come down for the gas lamp. But the great aspect of this is also that, we've talked about having an access onto Route 9D from this lot. This area then could be access, could have buildings, there is existing one, and parking, but other uses. And what I've, agreed with Alex, subject to us approving, is that we would create a committee, that Alex would be on. We probably have the town historian, Bill, your councilman, and myself, and also 4 or 5, residents from Houstonville itself, to determine what is the future and how we're going to be doing this, along with other plans that are yet to be announced. But this could be a real plus, for not just the town, but also for Houstonville.
Wow, that's great.
I want to make certain things clear, that I like working in committees, and I like listening to other people and their views. I have my own view. I want Houstonville to be really a fabulous, wonderful
Right.
place to live. And I'm going to not keep quiet about things that I don't like. So
Right.
I'm just saying that.
Absolutely, as we agreed.
So also, related to this, separate from this, and this is probably not appropriate to bring up right now, we do have a motion on the floor right now, and I think we are still in discussion, but I do have another point after we vote.
Okay, we have a motion and second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any nays or abstentions? Seeing none, the motion passed.
So Matt Wallingford owns the building that's on the turn just south of the Houstonville Mart, and he had been inquiring about different uses for that property that happens to be adjacent to Overcreek property down the road. And I had directed him to speak to Barbara Birdie about what options exist for the that probably 1850s building that was a furniture store at one point. I don't know what it is right now, but
Cabinets, I think. Doors, windows,
what is it now?
Doors.
Windows and doors? Okay. So Mr. Wallingford is a resident of the town and is very interested in maintaining the integrity of that property as well. And
Right.
I did mention that we were having conversations with Overcreek and Mr. Reese, and perhaps we can point him in the right direction
Right.
so that his view and vision is consistent with what we're talking about.
Yep. Very good. Okay,
So,
thank you.
Alex, just one, I was looking at your website. The Overcreek Farm was owned originally by John Houston, correct?
Yes.
Yes.
My great-great-granddad, who was at Farmland Farm, we can call it Farmland, his son died of tuberculosis. He said, I don't want to live here anymore. So he sold that and bought Houston Farm. And there we go.
Very
Full
good.
circle.
Thank you, Alex.
so much.
Thank you.
And also Karen, look forward to working with you too.
Yes.
Yes, thank you.
Very, very
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
We're very excited to be working on
Yes,
Wappingers.
same here. Okay, next item is a request for a zoning text amendment. I'll let Barbara discuss it. It's for 169 Myers Corner Road. And this is, application we're receiving, 165 Myers Corner and 169, we were looking at, where, I guess, part of the old Fairchild properties in that area that are COP, right? There's
Right.
this property and then the Fairchild that are the only COP.
This is
I think.
Laerdal, right?
This
Right.
is
It's the old
Laerdal,
IBM
and
buildings.
the third back building has been empty for quite some
Yep.
time. They've been trying to market it, but as we all know, office space is just not moving. So there is a company that would like to come in and use it for self-storage. It's not allowed in the COP zone, but it would help with that building being used. The traffic's minimal, it is in the back. The entrance in and out does have a traffic light, which does help the traffic onto Myers Corner Road. If the board was in favor of that, it would be a text amendment into the COP zone. And again, it would only affect this property and the Fairchild, which has, there's nothing on the table right now to develop that.
Purpose for the discussion, just see what is the interest of the board and before we move ahead.
So if we do this, do we set a precedent then for other companies to come and want to do the same thing?
Well, it would only be in this zone that you're adding this text amendment. There are a lot of other zones that they could go to. They're looking at this for the viability of this building, maybe the price, because it's being underused. So this tonight is just to see how you feel about it, and then the company that's looking to move forward would have to come in with the text amendment
So what kind of
application.
storage would it be? Would it be,
Excuse me?
what kind of storage would be there?
It would be, I guess, like a guarding, but it would all be indoors. So I guess they would retrofit the building
okay.
to be cubicles and small shed-like areas that are locked on the inside. This is not for outdoor storage.
So I guess we'd have to look back on how this became the Conservation Office Park, right? This was an IBM building,
Correct?
which was a quite contentious, if you read back on newspapers.com, you can read all about this. And I think the reason why it landed as a Conservation Office Park was to minimize the impacts. So anytime I'm looking at a text amendment or a zoning change, I want to evaluate what potential impacts could exist. Now, this is more of a passive approach if you're looking at, storage.
Right, the employees, maybe there'd be one on site,
Mhm.
possibly two.
Yeah.
I'm sure the hours would be regular business hours and even on the weekend. So it would have the most minimal effect than a busy office or another
Right.
educational facility.
Now, this building is in the rear. Does Laerdal still have a footprint in the front, or?
I'm not really sure, there are a lot of businesses in
Yeah.
the
Yeah,
two front
there's a
buildings.
lot.
It runs the gamut from
Yeah.
some educational uses to different businesses.
Right.
There's
Yeah.
I think there's a server farm, one of a portion of the upfront building.
Yeah. So I don't have an objection. My question also would be, is a zoning change warranted? But I don't think a zoning change would be warranted on this because this is just a singular use and it's only going to affect 2 parcels.
Exactly, and it's not changing the zone, it's just adding this use under that zone.
Right. And, from a planning perspective, something such as self-storage could be argued that it's consistent with Conservation Office Park, based on the attributes of a Conservation Office Park, more of a passive type, minimal impact situation. So I don't have an objection to,
Well, I mean, this is, in some respects similar to what happened down in East Fishkill at the IBM campus.
Right,
down there, where,
exactly.
Transitioned it into, various uses.
Exactly.
Yeah, but that's a
So-
much larger campus down there,
Right, but,
significantly
I mean,
larger.
Yeah, but at least they're using the building for something.
well, that's the thing. I mean, we
That's-
have to think outside the box here
Yeah.
because what we're seeing post-COVID, hopefully, is we're seeing these strip malls empty out. We're seeing people shopping online, right? We're seeing an entire change. And I think we have to change and adapt and think outside the box to accommodate these large spaces and ensure that they're being utilized before they fall into disrepair, and then that's another whole issue. So
Yeah.
in this particular case, I have no objection.
I don't either on this. I don't, I think it would be helpful to the residents that need to store things and they don't have the capacity in their homes or their apartments.
I was really surprised to see how much storage we have in the county, and I can tell you, my sister was looking for a storage container. There isn't
There's-
any available
Right.
that have heat and air conditioning. The
Right.
waiting list is so long.
Right.
Yeah, I agree because as the population has increased, these needs have not gone away for these people. So I think this would be a win-win in this situation. I think we need to look at any additional companies coming to us on each
On
each
a
case.
case-by-case
Case by
basis,
case,
of
exactly.
course.
But
So
in
does
this
the-
case, I don't think. it
Does the
has-
owner have a concept they're looking at already for
Excuse
storage?
me.
I don't
Or are they
have
just
seen
looking for us to
Yeah.
our
Not change the
interest.
zone, but just changing the use of the building. Is that what they're looking
Just
for?
allowing the use there. They would have to go to the planning board for site plan, amended site plan to add that use if there's a text amendment.
So,
Right.
so if we change the text on the code, they'd still have to go through the planning board.
Yep.
Yeah.
See,
Okay.
in COP right now,
Yeah, what are the other uses?
warehousing, not self-storage on a minimum lot of 2 acres is permitted.
So they can warehouse already, we just don't have the,
They just can't use it as self-storage.
and I'd rather see them warehouse in the, I'm sorry, I'd rather
They-
see them self-store in the rear building than have a 4-story U-Haul on Route 9.
Yep,
Yeah,
agreed.
yeah, no, I agree. I think this is something that we,
You know, and right now,
There's a need.
self-storage, rental, warehousing on a minimum lot of 2 acres is permitted in the HB zone and the AI zone. Those are the only 2 zones in the town where it's permitted.
What's the AI, airport?
Airport
industrial.
industrial.
And that's with a special use permit from the
Right.
planning board.
Okay, yeah, I don't have an objection to this text amendment.
I don't either. And if they'd like, maybe have them come in and give us a little more information, if they're willing to the board.
Sounds good.
I'm open to that, too.
I'll contact
Yeah,
them
I think the
tomorrow.
more information they can give, the better.
I guess the one question would be, warehousing is permitted in the COP district, not as a special use. So the question would be, do you want to make self-storage as a special permitted use or a principal permitted use?
I think if it's inside,
Yeah.
it doesn't lend itself to a special permit. I think
Right.
only if it had outdoor storage.
Yeah,
This is inside, though.
Right.
right, this is
Right.
inside.
So it would be
Okay.
a permitted principal use added to the
Right.
text.
Good. And again, offer for them to come in and and talk to us.
I would like to see a
I
conceptual,
do,
though.
I
I'd
think
like
that
to.
would be good.
I think it's a good idea, but I want to see a little more details
Sure.
behind it.
But they're not gonna put together a conceptual
Right.
without the text amendment, they're not gonna do that.
No, they can just come in and talk to us.
They could.
That might be,
I'll reach out to their attorney
beneficial.
Okay,
and
you'll
have
take care of
them
that
put something
tomorrow.
together.
With regard to text amendments, question for you regarding the castle. I don't know if you've spoken to an individual named Tom who,
Rassicot,
what's that?
Rassicot?
I don't know his last name.
I believe it's Tom Rassicot for welding.
Yes,
Yes, so he had called me quite a few weeks ago, and I asked him to put a letter together.
Yeah.
Which he did. And he's looking at that building. He does a lot of different types of welding. He does work on New York City fire trucks, staircases. He thought it was a good use there because he would take a predominant amount of the building, fix it up, do some landscaping, get rid of the eyesore that's there.
and it's all indoor.
It's all indoor, and he likes the high ceilings for the type of work that he does. And he does have one tenant, or I should say, there is one tenant, a doggy daycare in the back.
Right.
Right.
Right,
I
so
remember that, yeah.
just down the road,
Right.
the individual is gonna ask a similar type of question. Now, what is that zone to the castle?
That's CC, that's Conservation Commercial.
Okay, and for whatever reason, Conservation Commercial allows you to do renovations on cars and all that kind of stuff, right? But
No, it allows you in antique cars.
It allows you to do
Up through
antique cars.
1975.
Up to
Very
1975.
specific, yes.
That means
I
I'm
guess
not an
that's
antique.
at
Be
that
quiet.
So, anyway, it's one of those things where it's 12,000 square feet he's looking at, internal welding, which is gonna fill that space. The building obviously is, everybody knows what the castle is, and I think it could be a good use as long as we can adapt I guess it would be a text amendment, right?
Right. Could I ask him to come in and present to you?
Sure.
Sure.
And I think, and we also have another interested part, not for that, but right, a couple lots nearby, 2 of our better-known landscapers are also looking, so, to do storage or
Okay.
some other business in
Right,
that.
and that
And the
building-
complexion may change as we're working, as I mentioned before, on, sewer line
Yeah.
going down that, to take care of Al's neighborhood's sewer needs, but not just Al's, but in the airport industrial area. I've talked with Marcus, and we're
So midpoint you're talking
moving
about.
that. So it's becoming potentially more active area. Good, actually,
Yeah.
we're looking at perhaps 1,000 jobs increasing between Wappinger and East Fishkill along Route 376.
And I'm sure the
In a
legislator,
very, controlled, developed area, not, taking properties that have been, neglected, actually.
and I'm sure the legislator slash historian slash, what's your other title? Municipal Communications Assistant, can also inform you that there's a number of acres on the airport that could potentially be developed
Right.
in a way consistent with what we're doing
Yep.
outside the airport property. So the point here is not to go down a tangent. The point is that we're facing changing times here, and I think we're actively trying to adapt our
Right.
existing uses so that we don't have a number of
Vacant
vacant
property.
buildings.
Yep.
Right, exactly.
So thank you. If you can, Tom, if you can invite Tom to come in, I just asked Tom to reach out to you directly to find out the process, and certainly I think the town board should hear what his ideas are.
Yeah,
Okay, I'll reach
Yeah.
out to him tomorrow,
Yeah.
and Jim will reach out to the other gentleman.
yeah. While you're standing up here, why don't you address the next two items?
Okay, recreation fees. So our recreation fees are $5,000 a created lot. It also is $5,000 for each created unit as an apartment. So we've been looking at the different recreation fees, and I think what we're coming up with is instead of $5,000 for each apartment created, some sort of a scale, so a number for a one-bedroom and then a dollar amount for each added bedroom. We have quite a few projects on the back burner that might be coming forward for apartments, and we just want to get this solidified in our code so that these developers know what basically fees they'd be looking at.
So do they pay a fee today for apartments and condos, or they don't?
Every unit that's.
So every unit is $5,000 regardless? So whether it's a piece of property, an acre or whatever, it's $5,000 for an
No,
apartment,
it's
it's condo?
$5,000 per unit. So if there's a studio apartment, it's $5,000.
Right.
If it's a one-bedroom,
It's
$5,000.
if it's a three-bedroom, it's
$5,000.
$5,000. If it's a 4,000 square foot house on a 20-acre lot, it's $5,000.
Is there any other municipalities that have like a sliding scale that you could
Yes.
They do.
model and show us?
Yes.
LaGrange has a sliding scale, Poughkeepsie, Fishkill had a fixed scale. Fishkill was basically the same we were.
So
I think
it's-
they're considering a change right now, Jim, as I
I mean,
recall.
you know, for a lot of the multifamily projects, the margins are pretty thin on some of these projects. And, you know, a lot of the projects are also looking at additional funding sources, grant funding, affordable housing, things like that. So, you know, every dollar that can be saved, you know, on some of these projects, you know.
So do you have
make a
an
difference.
example of the scale that you're thinking of?
So I just wanted to bring it up. I'll put together a list of the other towns and the breakdowns.
Right.
And so that
That
you
would
can
be
look
good.
at it and maybe we can come up to a consensus and then we can get,
Yeah, we should, if
That
we're
would
going to
be
do
good.
that scale, we should be consistent with other
With
towns if we can.
Yeah,
I'll have
I
it
agree.
available for the next agenda.
yeah. Thanks, Barb.
And next, I'll just stay here, public burning. So I introduced some code revisions in the spring, and one of the items was open burning. And Bill, you brought up, you wanted to make sure we weren't being more restrictive than the state. So the only thing we're changing, we're actually adding to the code, is the DEC basic requirements. Our issue is in the spring and the fall, we have a lot of people burning, everything from trash to leaves, causing a lot of smoke, besides marshmallows. So what we want to do is have it in our code exactly what you can burn, or should I say what you can't. The DEC says not to exceed 4 feet in diameter and 3 feet in height. What we wrote up was 3 feet in diameter, so we'll change that to, it's 4 by 4 by 4 by 3 high. And in that sense, the state has no issue with us being consistent with the DEC.
So there'll be the same code as the state has today? Okay.
Correct. So
And that would be
we
consistent
will-
with DEC?
Right, and I
Okay.
think everyone
That's-
defers to the
that's
fine.
DEC on
Yeah.
this. So
I don't have
we'll
a problem
change
with
that.
that.
Right, but technically, we can't open burn in the town of Wappinger anywhere.
No.
So this is where it gets to be confusing. We can cook, but we can't burn just to burn, okay? You can't burn leaves, you can't burn, you know, brush, because our town population puts us into a category that prevents open burning. The state defines open burning as burning brush and burning those things. The DEC determines or defines burning that's illegal as burning trash and things like that. So there's no question that you can't do that. The issue that we run into, though, on a regular basis is we go to, somebody calls the fire department for a smoke investigation, or my neighbor's burning, and we get there and they have s'mores in their hand.
Right.
Right.
Yeah, right.
And they may not actually be eating s'mores, they may be burning. They just know that it's a cooking fire, that they, so we tell them just keep it down and, keep it safe. So I agree with taking the steps to make our code consistent with the existing DEC regulations, especially the burn ban that exists under the DEC statutory requirements. But I think we do need to take a look at some of the definitions within the code to make sure that they're consistent, because some of this is old, that it was written
Yes.
over the years.
It predates the DEC definition.
Relative to rubbish fire and open fire and,
Well, I mean, the DEC regulations, and the DEC regulations are not based on safety issues or fire safety issues. They're based on air quality issues.
Right.
right.
So the DEC has a strict ban, as you mentioned, for municipalities with less than 20,000. There's some exemptions regarding tree limbs and,
Yeah.
as I read the regulations, I think burning of leaves is prohibited. It's only tree limbs, so.
Right.
But, our code, the definitions in our code should be, exactly the same as DEC. There's some question as to whether or not DEC has preempted the field, with respect to their regulations. But, I think getting DEC to respond to burning issues is the challenge at best.
Right, and what we're really trying to do is put verbiage into the code so that the fire inspector or a building inspector that goes out can actually hand them, will
Right.
actually make handouts once this is adopted. Because a lot of people say, I can, and we want to be able to say, no, you can't, and here is what you can and cannot burn. And I think when people see that in writing, they tend to obey it.
That's on the
a little bit.
website, isn't it?
Yeah, all our codes are on the
Yeah,
website.
that's,
It's here, but it's not, it's
It's
really,
not
it's
real,
confusing. It's
right,
I mean, you can go to
exactly.
Home
Term
Depot,
protected fire
and
and-
you can go to Home Depot
Yeah.
and buy a chimenea right now.
right.
Okay,
Yeah,
and I would
right.
question if it's even legal under our code.
Exactly.
That's the problem. So, we need to just sit down and perhaps have Jim take a look at some of the terminology here, because I also don't want to be over restrictive either, right? So from a fire department standpoint, we want to be safe, right?
Right.
But at the same time, on a September evening or an August evening, and somebody calls 911 and we come rolling up with 3 pieces of equipment and a family's out back cooking hot dogs over a little fire, because
Right.
they have an issue with their neighbor.
Right.
That's where it can get a little bit,
All dicey, yeah.
Right. Where do you draw the line with a fire pit? Even
Well-
if it has a
So we
lid on
call
it?
out a chiminea, we call
Right.
out, these little units that you can buy at Tractor Supply or Home
Right.
Depot, or one that you make where you literally take rocks and
Right.
fill out like a
Right.
campfire.
right. And I also think there needs to be a determination at some point in the code relevant to the size of your parcel, because there are individuals that, if you have an open, even an open cooking fire in your backyard and your neighbor's 10 feet away, I mean, that can be an issue too sometimes. So I think we need to take a look at it. In the village, people have campfires in their backyard in the village on properties that are 20 feet wide, and we tell people here they can't do it. So, that's where we need to find some consistency
Agree.
to that.
Yeah,
you know.
I agree.
Bill,
So-
would you like something put in where it has to be at least, we'll come up with a number, like 15 feet from any adjoining property?
Dwelling or anything.
Yeah, whatever-
You can't go too big, because we have some small
Well, there's-
properties.
Now you gotta there's provisions in the fire code, New York State Fire Code, with respect to some of those issues.
Yeah, how many feet from a
So
building,
it becomes, you can't be more restrictive than the New York State Fire Code, because then you'd have to go to Albany, so.
Right, so we need to find that happy medium
Yeah,
there
that's the
between
problem.
safety and also, I don't want to ruin a family's experience, and this could happen at my house. I could do this right now. I could have, s'mores with my kids out back, and guaranteed somebody's going to call for smoke.
Yep.
It's going to happen, and.
Well, I mean, we've had issues in the past up at Woodhill, where people have had, cooking fires outside, and, because of the wind, it would blow into some
Somebody's
they result
house
in
or
And
flames.
you never get a
something,
call
yeah.
for a barbecue grill, but you always get a call for somebody,
Yeah,
right.
burning
Right.
in their backyard, even if it's permissible. So, that said, let's not forget now, the new trend is people buying these tables for their back decks that are flames that are 3 feet high in the middle of the table.
Propane.
Right,
Tables.
so I don't think we have anything to address those, because my concern would be if they have a roof over, or we just have to be,
Or an umbrella.
or whatever, I mean, you
Overhang of the house.
you can buy those, my neighbor has one, and I couldn't believe that, it, just what the amount of flame that comes out of these things. So, that said, I won't even mention the ones they make for indoor use that have open flame too now. So, anyway,
Let's
not to,
handle the outside right now.
Yeah,
All
really.
right, so we'll work on
Not to
this.
belabor
There's
it,
a,
but-
there's a lot of overlapping jurisdiction.
Right.
Right.
yeah, so we don't want to be too
And there's no
restrictive,
common sense.
but at the same time,
No such thing as common sense.
sometimes common sense doesn't exist, trust
No,
me.
it doesn't. I know.
Sometimes common sense isn't permitted by statute.
Sometimes it's too late for the common sense. But I appreciate you looking into it, and we can hopefully find a happy medium for everyone here.
Thank you.
Okay,
Thank you,
thanks, Barbara.
Thanks, Barbara.
Really, thank you.
Kevin, your turn on Veterans Affairs.
A little bit to talk about.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, how come mine's different from Chris's?
Because he likes me. All right. Kevin, excuse me, before you get started, thank you on behalf of my family. You guys, you've done a great job on the signs and taking care of my sons. We appreciate it very much.
Now that we're there, this is what the banner looks like. It's 3 feet by 5 feet, so it's pretty humongous. The printing is as large as it can get. So if you can't see the printing, as you're doing 75 miles an hour, all angels, well, you just gotta slow down. The reason that I brought this was not because of the Afghanistan reference, but to show that it is suspendable. It takes a bar going through it, and there's a name for this deal here, I don't know what it is. Anyhow, you attach a string or something, wire, to the bar, and we've got about 15 spaces that we can use in this room here during the winter. Because we'll take these down around the 15th of November, because that's when I figure that winter's gonna start on us.
Sure.
Obviously, we never know, but, so it's a really good idea to display these during the winter. It's not gonna cost anything, and my organization, our organization, the Wappinger Veterans, we can take care of that. That's not a problem.
I didn't realize they were that big, thanks for showing us.
Yeah.
I mean, you don't.
These are better than the ones that are out on the road because you cannot read the ones on the road.
Well, that's the same size,
That's what
right?
everybody is saying, but the print isn't the same.
I'm not sure the ones that are in the village are the same size.
No, they're not.
No, that one is the same as the town, that's the same one.
Right, yeah, this is the same.
But the
as-
print is different
Right,
on this.
right,
The
yeah.
print here is larger,
Yes.
and
Not-
that
not
makes
by
a
an awful
difference.
lot, but, yeah.
For somebody going 35 miles an hour versus 50.
75.
Well, even
Yeah,
going,
really.
even going through the
But
village,
this
it's
is,
tough.
but this print, I think, is
Yeah.
a very good improvement.
Right. And
for
we
people to see it.
we need to recognize the highway department.
Right,
Because they
absolutely.
are, over and above, Craig and Mike both, have really taken care. As you drive through the village, you see how those banners look, and they need attention.
Yes.
Our banners, except for the one on Sergeant Palmetier that looks like it got hit by a car carrier, they're holding up very well. There's a couple on Old Hopewell, which really shouldn't be there because of the construction, but let's see what happens. We haven't got that long before they come down. 'Tis the season for the moving wall. That is happening in Carmel right now, and the Putnam County does that in Carmel on a regular basis. It goes from something like $7,000 to $13,500. to host that for 5 days. There are a number of companies that will allow you or will avail the wall, a miniature wall. So I've got to, or we've got to really look and see what's out there, bang for the buck, and everything like that. I spoke to a woman who was, I thought she was a recording because she would not let me talk. And she just kept on going, and she wanted to know exactly what dates we were going to do it. And I'm out to late next year, and unfortunately, this company wants to do it by June of next year. So trying to wrestle up $7,000 by then, it would be a challenge. So the thing is, there are good companies and there are not so good companies out there. I'm going to research it. The original wall is on the veterans, the Vietnam Veterans Mile, I guess you could say, the mall down in D.C. If you go down there to see it, you don't have to be a veteran to shed a tear, because that'll grab you right by the heart. But that was dedicated in '93. The traveling wall by any number of companies is the same identical content, but it's shrunken. I don't know how they do it. Maybe it doesn't have 250,000 names on it. But the thing is, it takes quite a bit of distance, quite a bit of room, I should say. I'm looking at Carnwath because we just did that car show there, and there's an awful lot of room there. We've just got to dig into it and find out all the I's and T's that got to be crossed and dotted. So it's something that I do want to do because it would put us on the map, and it would really warm the hearts of the residents, which is basically what we want to do. Well, we're keeping them in line, but that's what we want to do. Make them feel good about veterans. On the next page, page 2, is a field of flags. That's another thing they do in Carmel. Now, I don't spend much time in Carmel, but when I've gone through it on Route 52 and they have that field of flags, they probably have thousands of them. Turns out there are companies who do that field of flags. I wasn't aware of that. I was thinking that we would go to the flag guys and buy a couple of thousand and see what happens. But it's something that's got to be very well organized. Again, that's something that we could do either at Carnwath or Schlatthaus, and it would be really impressive. I'm thinking that there would be an amount of money charged for the people to put their names on the flags, some sort of a pendant or something like that. So that's something that we definitely want to look into. On page 3, we talk about Schlatthaus and the memorial pavers. Steve and I went out and talked to the Geraci family, and it seems like the Boy Scouts did a really good job in 2012. Steve suggested that they, the next time when we do the west side, which is what I'm looking at, do another inch or two of the item 4. What's on the east side has held up remarkably well. And you know that there's been traffic over those bricks over the last 9 years. They've held up really well. So if we add a little bit more item 4 on the west side, it's unbeatable. Let's see, I met with Steve Frazier. Well, you guys can read. Number 5, Joe Geraci is scouting with he's looking into the scouts, doing an Eagle project on that, which would be presented to the town board so that everybody's on board with that idea. And the original project plans, Joe Jr. is the one who shepherded it through, and he's got all of the plans, and I will get with them to find out what those plans entail.
So do we have a cost for any of this stuff, or we just kind of, this is more conceptual now, and we're looking to, do potentially something like this? Because it's a great idea, by the way.
Yeah, well, we need to discuss it. I have a vision of doing all the way around that memorial. I would also really want to do the one on Pie Lane, the Major March Memorial.
Right.
Steve and I are butting heads on that a tiny bit because we're using different pavers.
Because we do have money for Mart's Field allocated. We have $19,000 we allocated out of Parkland Trust to help
Okay.
pay for those, so.
That's cool. That's good.
So I think, Steve, that's the same one you were probably looking at too, is that correct?
Same one.
So the $19,000 we allocated out of Parkland Trust money, we were looking to do the bricks over at Mart's. Is that the same thing Kevin's talking about?
Similar.
So are they two separate or one and the same?
We're talking about two different projects.
Okay.
I think what we're saying is one part of it is blank bricks and the other part of the memorial bricks that people buy with people's names on them.
Right.
Okay.
And the idea is.
Yeah, so, I mean, I think, Al, the idea is, you know, what Steve has is more like what we have out here in front. And Kevin's saying, hey, let's add the paver content, you know, to it as one of two areas.
You lay
Right,
down,
right.
8 feet by
Right.
30 feet of blank pavers.
Right.
And then pull
Right.
them out.
Pull
as
'em,
feet
yeah,
quad pavers.
exactly.
Okay.
And, you know, like I say, I would like to know that.
Get near
Microphone.
the microphone.
Get near the microphone.
Hey, yeah, okay. I would like to develop it further, so it's something I'm going to keep on coming back with. Another thing that is near and dear to our hearts, especially Joey and the supervisor, is the veteran graves. Randy and I went out and annotated all of the veterans' graves, starting with New Hack on 376, on New Hackensack Road. And I would like to take the time on Veterans Day to read some, if not all of those. We don't have to spend an awful lot of time talking about each individual grave, but there are some big ones out there. And I spoke with a woman out on Deer Run Road, and Joey had been in contact with her over the years, so that there's a whole bunch of information,
Okay.
including the family plots. On page 5 is we're going to do the 5K again. We're going to do it in April. And hopefully, we're going to be all the way through the Greek alphabet on COVIDs, so by that time, so we won't have any virtuals. And I already talked about the winter storage of the Hometown Heroes banners, so that's something that we'll
So I
get
think,
to.
you know, Kevin, I mean, this is tremendous, and I think it's taking it, you know, to the next level as far as our veterans, you know, programs, organization. And since we're, you know, coming up to budget season, you know, I think that some that hasn't been allocated, then we can, you know, and I've discussed with Kevin, you know, board members, that we should be considering some additional, you know, budget line
Funding,
for
sure,
Veterans
absolutely.
Affairs. We haven't really had that. You know, they've been doing a great job with getting, you know, donations, but I think that the town should consider this budget year, you know, for a budget line, and so we can be talking more about it. You know,
Right.
Kevin, you can present to us, you and your committee. You know,
Yeah, we're
on
having
what
a
it is.
committee
And
meeting on
Frederick's
Wednesday,
here.
and Al hopes to help us out.
So
we'll
Frederick,
talk
you know,
about that.
can look at creating a separate budget line, and then
Absolutely.
we'll decide how we want to fill it.
Yeah, and November book sale.
Yeah.
We're going to do that again. That's a big hit. We had a good time with that. We're just going to do more advertising and earlier advertising so that more people know about it. Questions?
And one of the things also we're considering, and Bill, this came up really during the county executive's call, as I've suggested to Jessica and Donna, that as to several of our fall events, like the book fair, like the crafts fair, we consider having the table again like we did before for COVID vaccinations, you know, to make it available. You know, so, we'll, you know, I think Donna is in the process, maybe Jessica too, of contacting the county
It's a good idea.
with respect to that, and, you know, so I think it's a good idea to do that.
I agree.
Certainly.
Very good.
Thank you, Kevin. Thanks, you know, tell the committee how appreciative we are of all that's being, you know,
Great,
done.
great progress here, Kevin. Thanks for everything you do. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Kevin.
Thank you.
Okay, Steve, why don't you come up and share with us your updates and, you know, where things are going.
Yeah, the projects are moving along at Spook
Hill.
Hill. We have the roof completed, the gable ends are enclosed, the whole building is enclosed now. Preparing it for paint, that's the next step, is to get the paint in, and once that's done, we can start trimming it out and installing the fixtures and dividing doors and stuff inside for the restrooms. And then beyond that, it's going to be fairly close to complete. We have run into a snag. The electrician is having problems getting materials for the electric upgrade, and it's sounding like it may be towards the end of the year before that those parts do become available.
Steve went to Home Depot and showed me
Yeah.
a picture of no electrical wiring on the shelves.
There's a big shortage of electrical materials, industry-wide. It may cause us a little bit of an issue there. But we've informed the county of that, so that there should not be any jeopardy with the grant. Robinson Lane is moving along. The water line was installed to the new location for the restroom. The septic system is roughed in. The fill is put in place for that to be installed. And the pad for the building has been prepared. I guess we expect a building within the next 2 weeks or so. And that'll be put in place, and then the hookup will take place, and the rest of the septic system installed, and it should be ready to go then. It's a prefabricated building, so once that is there, it should move along pretty quickly.
So we've been working with CPL on this, Steve, and I know that we met there this past Friday, looking at some of the potential changes to the Challenger bathroom area. Instead of having the steps there, potentially doing the wider sidewalks versus the 4-foot doing the 6-foot to make it a little bit better accessible for the handicapped children that'll be using that particular facilities. And great job for you guys going out there. I saw you cut all those trees out there, so thank you very much for doing that.
Yeah, we had to remove some trees that were in the way of the construction site, and I went out last week then and got them cleaned up.
But the contractor worked with us very well. They were supposed to have opening day this past Sunday. Of course, it rained, but they had all the work cleaned up out there, all the pipes, all the, the vehicles moved out of the way. They put the safety fences around, et cetera, so they really did a nice job. Thank you.
Yeah, I've been very impressed with this contractor, and I hope, in the future, we can consider him again.
We've done everything they've asked them to do.
Doing a very good job.
Did they pick a new day for opening day?
So they typically play on Sundays, so it looks like the next one will be this coming Sunday.
Let's hope that it doesn't rain.
Yep.
Rockingham Park, I'm going to defer most of that to CPL when they come on here to speak.
Tim's on the,
So can we talk about a couple more things on
yeah,
Robinson
go ahead
Lane?
and talk first on with
Let me just
Steve.
talk about Robinson Lane. So you've done some other good work out here too. So you've ordered the fencing, which we're gonna talk about later on, correct?
Well, I haven't ordered it. I brought the proposal forward.
Brought the forward,
That's for you
and
folks
it's
to
roughly
decide whether we go.
$40,000. That would be for R3 and Inspiration 2, I guess it is.
Right.
We also have the streetlights we're looking at doing as well, getting the timer replaced and the dugouts, which are the big thing. When we were out there on Friday, Steve, myself, CPL, and the actual contractor was out there looking at the dugouts, specifically R3 and R4. What we found out is they'd like to knock the buildings down in R3 and put a cement slab in for now, figure out what you're going to do in the springtime, and then for R4, they were going to fix the dugout. I think it was ruled, and Tim can come on later on and talk about that if I misquote anything. But structurally, and I think, Steve, you said it as well, is it's very sound. They're going to take the top layer off. 'cause
They
it's
already
complete-
took the top off, right?
They
top-
took the extra
bricks,
They took the extra ones blocks? Okay,
Yeah,
good. So they were going to do that. They're going to rebuild, I guess it's 2 or 3 layers, and then put
Right.
a new roof on that. So we're waiting for the estimate to come in. That'll be in the next 2 to 3 weeks. That'll be coming in. So hopefully we'll see if we can't move things along. Again, that's a safety issue that we want to make sure is taken care of. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
At Rockingham, as far as I know, they started work this morning. They were scheduled to work this morning. I'm off this week, so wasn't over there
They
to actually
actually
inspect.
sent us a note saying they weren't able
They
to
were
because of the
delaying.
weather.
Okay.
So they'll start tomorrow. The expectation is they'll start the abatement tomorrow and Wednesday, and then by Friday, the building will be completely gone. Tim can probably talk a little bit more because I know him and his
Right.
rest of his team.
Right, yeah, CPL has pretty much assumed the responsibility.
But that's a
for the
schedule we
job.
got from the company that's going to take it down.
I do have one request, as I sent you before we had the surplus auction, and the total came in, I believe, just under $9,500.
9517, you said.
Excuse me?
9517, you
Okay,
said.
yeah. And the expense of, the unpaid expense for the truck that we received was just below $7,000.
$7,000, that's right.
So there's a difference of about $2,500. And I'd like to request that that difference be put into my equipment line. I would need a motion from the board to have the comptroller take care of that.
So they come in two different lines, right? So it's paid out of one line, and the revenue from the sale of the truck goes into a different line, correct?
Right, so the revenue, I mean, what Frederick would do is, I don't think there's probably
Yeah,
any.
the way Frederick explained it to me, the surplus sales money goes into the revenue line.
Correct.
And then from that point, you have to
We
redistribute it
decide where it
to.
goes.
Well, you don't
Yeah,
distribute,
exactly.
what you would do is you would
Just allocate.
increase the
Right.
Right.
expenditure line for the full amount of the truck, or whatever
To
whatever you're
your
buying.
department.
So,
Right, and I had anticipated.
About
in the area of
$8,000 you're talking about.
$8,000
That's right.
for the sale of the truck, and then we had some additional equipment we put in there as well. The actual balance from the sale that had to go towards the new truck was just under 7. It was high 6. So there is a
Some
surplus then
leftover,
of about
right.
$2,500, and just want to request that we.
I'm okay
put
with
that
moving
into
money
our-
around. I don't know that.
I don't have a problem with that at all.
I'm fine with it.
So I don't know, Jim,
I
if
mean, we
there's
can,
What do we,
resolution, or what do we need to do?
yeah, I mean,
I make a resolution that
if we
we
put it all down,
transfer?
we'll make a resolution at the next meeting.
Okay.
Okay,
Okay,
that's
good,
fine.
good enough, thank you.
Yeah, you should get that.
And if there's no other questions, and
Do you have a PO that's going out, or?
that's already been taken care of. I'll send you all the
Okay.
all the,
Yeah, so I mean, if the PO is out and it's ordered, it's just a matter of, doing the
Right.
amendments to the budget,
Right.
so.
Okay, thanks, Steve.
Yep, thank you.
Thanks, Steve.
If you're short,
Huh?
Steve, if you're short on the line,
You
let
have
us
to
know.
call.
no.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, next item then is for Tim Moot, who, as I mentioned earlier, is stuck at home because of the storm damage and electricity, et cetera. So Tim, are you there?
I'm here, can you hear me?
Hi, Tim.
A little bit.
Yeah, sorry I couldn't be there. I just wanted to say a big thank you to Central Hudson and their line crews that responded to 2 significant incidences on my road over 2 days. And this morning they were out there in the pouring rain and stuck it out. So thank you to those guys, and I'm sure all the line crews that are out there on the East Coast. I can follow up Rockingham, the schedule. We got a call this morning because of the weather. They just bumped the schedule to start tomorrow. We always maintained it's going to be about 2 days worth of work to abate the asbestos, and then the building should come down rather quickly after that. So we're hoping that's going to be done by the end of this week. I'll circle back on Spook Hill. I know there's the committee, and we talked about phase 2. I've been in touch with Lior, the representative with Parkitects, and he's indicated that there's scheduled 8% increase on the playground equipment, and that's if we can get the contract, a state bid contract. It's off, I think, Sourcewell, which is a national co-op. But he's requiring that his contract be signed and the material ordered prior to the end of the year. And if it goes into next year, there could be another additional 5% increase. So we may want to consider having another Spook Hill Park Committee meeting and get that on the schedule so we can kind of finalize at least the ordering of materials.
Tim, when can you get us the Phase 2 information? You know, we're going to have an opportunity soon, to file a grant application with the county, and therefore I want to get all that in so we don't miss this opportunity for some additional funding like the previous funding. It's a great opportunity if we can pull it all together and hopefully then get it awarded. But can let's talk some more on that, okay, so we can get it in and get Scott, working with us on the grant application. And Joey will help too.
Okay.
Thanks.
Do that. And then I also have on my list here is an update on the highway garage. I've had a couple discussions with some councilmen, and we talked about this master plan. I'll try to pull it up here. Bear with me. The master plan we put together over the course of a year. It's kind of been sitting idle for a year, and there's a whole list of priorities. We tried to separate that. Can you guys see that?
No.
We can see it, but it's small.
It's probably too small, right? Yeah, I'll try to
Yeah.
zoom in on the
Just
list, but
increase
there's
it a little
several
bit.
items, and we tried to break it into 2 phases. And what I would suggest is just an idea, different towns do things different ways, but if we set up what we call a user group committee, and normally something like this might include like Mike Sheehan, Steve with Steve Frazier, because we're talking about using some town forces for some of these items. Maybe a mechanics representative as we look at the mechanics bay, and kind of get like a little committee together and just go over one last time all the sequencing, all the reprioritization, who's going to do what. And I think it would be good so everybody sees the global picture, especially if some town forces are going to be used to accomplish some of these things. You know, and the overview was one time the renovations on the internal section of the building, the break room was a priority. We took care of the major safety items by removing the dilapidated roof and the gas line that was running through it. During that phase, Steve noted one of these other roofs now need replacing. So obviously we want to replace a roof before we consider any internal repairs. And then over here was the eBay mechanics edition. And then, you know, the big thing was we also looked at stormwater and the whole site regrading. And maybe some of that stuff, if we broke it up into little mini phases, the town could consider accomplishing some of that. But I think a committee meeting just relative to the whole process and the itinerary would be good. That's my suggestion, but, you know, we can.
No, I agree, and I think related to that, and Fredericks asked a question, sent out an email, you know, the only bond funding timetable we haven't addressed is when do we want to, you know, collect, you know, raise the bond and collect the money? Is it this year or next year, right, Frederick? That's your main question. Everything else is a go. So I think it's a matter of, do we get it going now, you know, or we wait on funding, you know, for it for a later year? So that was the question put to the board.
So I think you start now. I mean,
I
you don't.
agree.
I'm fine.
And the thing is, you don't get charged until you actually use the money, so you might as well go forward with the process, secure the funds, right? Because we bonded for $1.25 million for the garage, so now would probably be best before interest rates start going up too as well. So
I agree.
go out there, bond it now, and then again, you don't get charged till you actually use the money.
Well, no, you would get charged once you borrow it, then that's when the clock starts ticking.
You get charged the moment that you,
The moment you issue the bond.
Draw it down, yeah, issue.
but it's,
The-
what is
the
it, the
interest
interest?
rate
The interest
starts
only,
running
right?
on that
But it's
clock.
the interest only, it's not the,
Well,
right?
it depends. I mean, you can issue bond anticipation notes for the first year for interest only. I think you can go out up to 3 years on interest only.
Right.
And you'd have to convert it to permanent financing.
Okay.
But the
Tim,
interest
were we
clock
gonna-
starts running the first day you know, the day you issue it.
Tim, were we gonna resurface the existing mechanics bays? I don't remember, after we build the new section?
Tim?
Tim?
I'm having a hard time hearing the question.
I was asking, do you remember, were we gonna resurface the mechanic bays after we build the new addition?
I mean, that was discussed because it could be repurposed space, but I think, you know, again, it's like, is that a priority? Is
No,
it building the new space the first thing, you know, that kind of thing?
No, I was just wondering if we had
Yeah,
talked
it's-
about it. I don't remember.
Well, one of the things, though, Tim, we had discussed, and remember, we did take the samples, is that there was a section there that needed to be dug out, you know, and then totally laid as far as the floor goes, correct? Remember the contaminated portion?
Right, so there's some preliminary sampling done, and we would need to do geotechnical borings for the foundation design of the 2 bays, so that could kind of be a twofold exercise, but that would be like maybe our first big step of kicking this thing in gear, to get some of that soil sampling done. We could also, while we had the rig out there, look at how we would address the stormwater stuff, so.
Right.
We could come up with basically a geotechnical plan to implement that. That'd be the first step.
So I think your idea of having a sit-down meeting, you know, with the right people should be done ASAP. Chris, I mean, we can schedule that later in the day or something, so you can.
That'd be perfect.
Yeah, participate, and whoever wants to participate,
Yeah,
but
let us
certainly get
know,
Chris
because
part.
we could always pull in
Right.
by Zoom.
Yeah. Okay, so we can, talk about getting that set up. So let's move on. Sergeant Palmetier, I know you did the markings and so forth. Where are we on that?
Right, so our survey crew was out there, we staked out the right-of-way, which is the red dashed line, the sort of like this rectangular shape. This is what we'll call our sandbox, and within this sandbox, they laid out roughly the perimeter of the gravel parking lot. We met with Mr. Segretti, Mike Sheehan out there, I guess it was Thursday last week. We got a whole plan in place. Mike was going to start today, but with the rain, he's planning on starting tomorrow. I think the board approved up to $20,000 expenditure.
That's right.
We did a real crude, rough estimate on the amount of gravel base that we would need, and I think we're roughly around 6,000 just on paper. But once we get it going, we'll have a better idea. But for now, relative to the basic materials, we're well under the budget that was appropriated.
And I had mentioned to Alan Lehigh, Bill, I had met him separately on a couple other things, and I had mentioned to him that we were in the process and we may want some beautification around that. So he's ready, willing, and able to go whenever. He just needs some lead time, like on mums.
Sure.
But otherwise, he's willing.
So the idea, and Tim, thank you for doing this. We've been talking every day. This is going to be for September 11th, the 20th anniversary of 9/11. The goal here is to get this parking lot in place. We anticipate a significant attendance, being that it's on a Saturday. So we go through this every 6 or 7 years. When it's on a Saturday, it's a big difference than on the weekday. Obviously, looking at this, it's only a minimal number of vehicles there, but we're going to be fully utilizing this gravel area and also using some other designated areas along Sergeant Palmetier Way for September 11th. And if it doesn't rain, if we have solid ground there on Mr. Segretti's property, we're going to be hoping to get a couple fire apparatuses up there to display the American flag. It's got to make sure the ground is going to be good, right? I don't want to sink anything. So that said, the ceremony for September 11th is coming together. My thanks to Supervisor Thurston and Joey for assisting with our different points of contact. It is the 20th anniversary of this dark day. It's also, unfortunately and tragically, in the wake of what's happening in Afghanistan. Sergeant Palmetier gave his life to this country in Afghanistan. So this is going to have an even more solemn and emotional meaning for many. So again, Tim, I know you're hustling hard on this. We were dealing with a tropical cyclone in the middle of the whole thing. You were able to get it staked out ahead of the rainfall, and I know that Mike Sheehan is assisting, and I know there's other people behind the scenes that are teamed up that are helping on this. So thank you for that, and we'll get this thing in place. Relative to beautification, that's not my priority for the 9/11 service. It's just the functionality of the property. I have full faith that we'll beautify it just like we did on the other portion of the park. We also have a couple other items that are going to be added to the park, hopefully, if they come in. We're having supply chain issues with a couple things also. But we are continuing to evolve this park, and it's hard to believe it's 20 years after that fateful day. So thank you, Tim, and I will give you a call tomorrow.
Okay, I'm good. Any other questions?
Thanks, Tim.
No? Anybody?
Good
Hey,
job.
Tim, just one last thing on the dugouts over at Robinson Lane. Did they tell you when they're going to be able to give you an estimate of what it would cost to rebuild those? Was that about 3 weeks?
I'm sorry, the acoustics are dependent on who's talking. Did they say what on Robinson Lane?
Yeah, so the dugouts, so they were going to give us an estimate in about 3 weeks on the
Right, so
replacement?
as we discussed in the field, we need to come up with some structural drawings. One of our observations was why those dugout slabs were heaved so bad is there was no reinforcement in there whatsoever. And it's probably likely, again, because of the fluctuating water table. So we were going to come up with a structural sketch and design to give to the contractor for pricing. And we got the amended plan that Councilman Cassell brought up today about the widening of the ramps and elimination of the stairs. That was issued today. based on a field discussion, that's gonna be a net zero change. We need to wait on a formalization of that, but, the roof detail and the slab detail are pending. We should be able to get the contractor that in the next couple days. But with the building pending a 2-week delivery time, they wanted to get a lot of this concrete work done all at once. And that's where the cost benefit to the town would be, is to just pour a couple of these extra slabs while the rest of the concrete is coming. So in the grand scheme of things, it's not that much more concrete, but we need to get the pricing put together on that. So it's in the works. But yes, 2 to 3 weeks out, I'd say we'd have all the parts and pieces lined up.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Good job, Tim.
Thanks, Tim.
Thank you, Tim.
Okay. You may go back and you blow out the candle and, yeah.
Fill your generator up.
Yep. Thank you. We'll talk with you soon.
Be safe, Tim.
Next item was financial report, but I'd like to move things around a little bit as a courtesy to Beth Devine. Beth is here from the Historical Society, and I had proposed that we consider a grant of $5,000 that would go toward MAP, and if there was some additional. So I'd like to just invite Beth up right now, if you don't mind, and so she can leave at a decent hour. So Beth, why don't you come on up and we'll talk about this.
Thank you.
Good
Thank you
evening.
very much. My name is Beth Devine. I am president of the Wappingers Historical Society. I think, Joey, are you going to do a little chat first? Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor, Town Board, Beth. So, by way of background right here, we at the Wappinger Historical Society were very fortunate to receive a surprise donation of a one-of-a-kind map that was actually commissioned by the Messier family, the Brewer family, and the Bates family in 1800. This is a map that has never been seen before, never documented, never studied. And right here, this is a copy of this map that was presented to the Historical Society. Beth went and had copies made. But part of our mission at the Wappinger Historical Society is to promote, preserve, and conserve the history of both the town of Wappinger and the village of Wappingers Falls and our surrounding communities. And so with this document right here, it came in a frame that was pretty beat up, and the plan of the Historical Society is to preserve this document. And with this document here, we would be able to further understand its history. Just to point out a few interesting things about it, it's calling for the construction of a proposed road from today's Losey Road, at the end of that along Myers Corners Road, to basically bypass Route 9 and go right in to the village of Wappingers Falls at the start of today's New Hackensack Road, where it meets Route 9. That road was never built. But then it goes through the village of Wappingers Falls, crossing over the falls, up West Main, and going along what is now Delaverne, and then eventually turns into Channingville Road toward New Hamburg, which then was known as Wappinger Point. This area, again, within the town of Wappinger was never developed, so it's very interesting how the early settlers of the town were looking to expand the infrastructure in the area. It also points out areas along Old Troy Road, actually along the river, Farmer's Landing, which we have Marcy Wagman here, who lives in the homestead there, shows that settlement, and a number of the other historically significant areas around Houstonville and the village of Wappingers Falls. So as the supervisor mentioned, we are looking for a potential grant of $5,000 to further preserve this document and others. In comparison to other municipalities, actually, for example, the town of East Fishkill provides an annual grant of around $27,000 to $25,000 to their historical society. So we're looking, hopefully, that the town board can entertain a $5,000 grant to preserve this one-of-a-kind document and others. And I'll turn it back to Beth. Kind of talk about some other things that the Historical Society is doing.
Just a quick question, though, and Beth, maybe you know, I'm sure you know the answer to this. So I'm a map guy, just so you know. never seen this ever before and seen a lot of them. Where are you putting this circa date-wise? What do you think?
1800,
1800?
yes.
Wow.
1800.
So that's the earliest one that I think I mean, there's an Albany Post Road one that we found from, it might be around that time.
1798.
Yeah, so-
And we have the roundabout patent map and a few others,
But nothing specific to Wappinger or,
this is very Wappinger.
Well, this map is the proposal that competed with the New Hamburg Turnpike.
Yes. This actually, so an interesting point on
Okay.
here, actually the town clerk.
oh, you
asked-
know that one.
He said, where's Old Hopewell Road? Well, Old Hopewell Road was actually constructed in 1824. The process started as the New Hamburg Turnpike, and that area does not exist.
So it's pre.
This is pre-Old Hopewell Road.
So is New Hamburg Road on there, though?
New Hamburg does come down through here because that was originally Farmers Landing Road. So you see that come up through here, come up there, through Middle Bush Road to Myers Corners Road because that was originally Farmers Landing
But
Road.
it's not labeled a turnpike.
No, because that was not a turnpike. Farmers Landing Road was built by the Verplank family, and
Right.
that was separate.
1700s,
Yeah.
when
The,
they-
the turnpike changed the course of New Hamburg Road slightly.
And the width.
Yes, oh, significantly.
Yeah.
But yes,
Wow,
this is
okay.
very, and also,
Is
it
there a reference to Underhill and Bud?
It does not actually. Underhill and Bud are further east. But this is very interesting because, by way of further background, the hamlet of Middlebush, don't forget, we were in all part of the town of Fishkill, but the hamlet of Middlebush took up most of the center portion of the town of Wappinger. And you have a road off of Myers Corners Road here marked as Middlebush Road. That is today's Losey Road. The original name of Losey Road was Middlebush Road as it went through the center of
And
its
what
hamlet.
size is that map, the original map that was donated?
That is the same, that
Okay,
is
so
the
it's
same
that same
size.
size.
It's 17 by 21.
And it's the original, the one that you have?
Yes, yes.
And we are looking to, with this grant too, to have a copy of the grant permanently displayed here at Wappinger Town Hall, but then the original would be at the Museum of
Right.
Homestead Historic.
Under the proper conditions, but we would have a copy here.
And then were there other documents? I know you were sending me random pictures at one point of other maps I had not seen before. Are there other documents that can be preserved as well?
Yes, that's what we're looking to do hopefully with this grant, but one map I had sent you was an original drawing of when the village Wappingers Falls took ownership of Mizzier Park in 1891, and it showed you,
1891.
and it showed the original map and layout of the gardens and the grounds of the park.
Wow.
That's one.
Yeah.
Another.
Which is your headquarters, so.
Yes, that's right.
Yeah,
And
right.
another one, too, which is of interest to the town, is designating District Number 2 of the town of Wappinger school system, which is the East Main Street portion of the village of Wappingers Falls, part of the town, and has an actual sketch of
Okay.
the school district building there. So a couple of maps that are of extreme historical importance.
Great, wow.
Thank you, Joey. Now, you all know why he's the town historian. I know it's late, and I would like to thank the board for time this evening. And I know you want to get home, so I will make this brief. I would like to come back in the future to give you more information about the Wappingers Historical Society. But tonight, I want to give you just a little update on what we are doing at Mizzier Homestead. We are in the middle of an extensive renovation of the older original section of the homestead that was down. The property was purchased in 1741 and built, the structure was built in the next couple of years. We are nearing the end of the outside stabilization and the restoration. We have also updated our heating and cooling system, which now gives us temperature control for our collections, and that's usually the first thing that they ask you when you're looking for grants, are your collections temperature controlled? We have reopened to the public for our monthly tours, and we continue to have our signature tours that are private throughout the week. We're hoping to invite you all to visit us next year for a grand reopening of the original older section, when we'll be able to interpret that older section in a colonial period. So this evening, Joey showed you our most recent donation, which we're very excited about. And this is one of the most early historical maps that we have. And it confirms where many buildings are located that we knew about, but this really details it. So we are hoping to be able to conserve this very soon. So you can see there are many ways that you can, that we can utilize additional funding. I thank you in advance. We're very grateful for everything that you are doing for us, and we are grateful that you are the first town board of Wappinger to acknowledge that history is important and that it must be saved. So we thank you.
Thank you, Beth. Thank you for all you're doing, too, to preserve the history and to promote it. You know,
Thank you.
She's done a great job, so has the society.
We're very
so
excited about all of
thank
the
you.
things that are going on, and we hope that some of you will come
Right.
and see us and visit and go for a tour.
So,
And thank
Mr.
you,
Beal, would
Joey.
you like to make a motion?
So, yeah, I certainly would. I just want to make sure that from a legal perspective, what funding we can use for the purposes of protecting history, Jim.
So I looked at some of the controller's opinions, and the controller's opinions consistently say that the town has no legal authority to make a grant of taxpayer funds unless it's permitted by statute. The older controller opinions talk about, certainly say that, a contract with a historical society for services is permissible.
Define services?
Maintaining historical structures, indexing, and...
What about artifacts?
Well, if it was a town-owned artifact, certainly, it would be appropriate. I don't know if the town has the legal authority to give money for, things that are not legally owned by the town. I can certainly look into that, but...
Well, I think you should, yeah.
I mean, if it was
And
an
let us
issue-
know
if it was an-
before
if it
we
was,
do anything.
Donated to the town, certainly the Historical Society could...
The town can, though, administer grant funding, and that's what we were proposed to do.
And that's what East Fishkill does. And I think Fishkill also has a grant funding form.
Right, but...
So we're getting a grant from another source, is that?
No, the town would be the one administering this grant, per se.
Well, I mean, again, as a general proposition on the constitutional prohibition of gifts, we couldn't give money to the Boy Scouts, we couldn't give money to, we have contracts with Little League, we have contracts with soccer, they provide a program. What the cases say is that to the extent that the Historical Society would be providing a service to the town, then that's certainly a permissible expense. So
Could you look
based
into
on-
it and let us know, though? Just make sure the Ts are crossed and the Is are dotted, so,
It is
we
a
do it
service to the
properly.
town.
Excuse me? I didn't hear you.
So,
What did
Jim,
you say?
I said it is a service to the town.
Right, but under the law,
So, Jim, what would
there's
you
a higher
recommend?
power than us.
Jim, what would you recommend as a funding source for this?
I don't know. I mean, right now.
Can we do some research on that? Because
Yeah,
I think it's a
get
great
back to
idea.
us.
It would come out of A fund,
Right.
so.
So, from an A-fund perspective, we need to establish...
The first thing you would have would be some kind of contract with the Historical Society.
Right, which I'm not against, but we would need some sort of tangible legal benefit, and if it's for the purposes of preserving history or something that we can definitively identify, because the last thing we need is something arbitrary that is flagged on an audit or something like that. That's what we need to do. We need to, in my opinion, provide funding to the Historical Society. We need to determine a way to do it, a mechanism to do it, in a way that is keeping Jim smiling. And at the same time, when pieces like this arrive, okay, we have to be able to support the mission of the Historical Society, so that these types of things don't sit around and deteriorate. You know, part of our mission here from an historical document perspective is we maintain our historical documents that the town owns, right? This particular document was donated to the Historical Society. They're seeking funding to assist with preserving it, which is something we do in the town clerk's office anyway. So my position on this is we need to find a way to provide for the preservation of this priceless, I will say, document. This right here, there's information on this document that actually can alter some of these books that have been around for 100 years about the town and the village. There are things on there that that could change the opinion of, Edward Platt or those that have written. Popper, excuse me, have written about the village and the town. So a chapter could be added because of this, right? So if we can, without delay, determine a way to do that, certainly I would support it.
And Jim, you'll let us know.
Sure, I mean, would
Perfect.
this Historical Society be amenable to conveying partial interest in I mean, if the town had any interest in the document, I think it would be, a permissible expense. The only thing is, if the town doesn't own it, then.
Right.
Well, that's
That's
something,
the question.
that's going to be a philosophical discussion that's not right at this moment,
Right.
but I know where you're going with that. In other words, if the town of Wappinger, just like the village owns the building, right? Does the village own the building?
Yes. Correct.
Therefore, the village can appropriate taxpayer dollars towards that
Maintenance.
building and towards maintaining that building, right? We, as a town, don't have a ownership of anything in that building, right? However, if we did have a percentage or small interest in a particular item that we were supporting, then I think we can see it as one route. But I do think that we do need to explore what Joey said. Do we have the ability to enter into either a grant process, or is there a way we can facilitate a grant process to preserve this document and the other documents without delay? I mean, this is not something we can kick around for 3 months.
Right.
No, we want to do it right away. But Jim, also, maybe you can talk with Tom Wood, see how East Fishkill does it.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think,
So can you come back to us in 2 weeks? I don't know what the turnaround time is for you needing this $5,000, but can you come back to us in 2 weeks
Yeah,
with a
sure.
recommendation?
Yeah, and I'll even go this far, if we can put on the agenda for the September 13th meeting.
Right.
Put this item on the agenda. You don't have to speak again, Beth, unless you want to. Unless you want to, but this way, we have it on the docket. We're going to act in one way, shape, or form, because I think it's that important.
Yep.
Thank you all very much for your support.
And and also, Beth, if there's an avenue for a contract to exist between the Historical Society and the town to help facilitate these types of missions, I think we should also have that conversation over the next 2 weeks.
But Jim, I've, in previous life, in Haddonfield, New Jersey, historical on the map, what we did there under New Jersey law was to enter into a license that gave us the right to exhibit and to obtain and preserve a copy. Since Beth is, talking about a copy, but in that case, under New Jersey law, a license between us and the Haddonfield Historical Society, where Continental Congress had met.
well, I mean,
Was a way that we did it.
that, you could certainly do that as a license agreement, separate and apart. I mean, I'd be more comfortable with paying them a certain license.
And then the $5,000 was a way to maintain it, to
Correct.
preserve it over time, right? And then for other things in the future, we could look at it, but that's the way that I would.
I mean, certainly that would work. I mean, that's a contract.
Right.
When you're getting,
Beth?
they're providing a service.
Yeah,
No, I mean, that makes sense.
so that's the way I would do it, and would take, probably very little, research, but you can check it out and then confirm, but that's what I would do.
And I think maybe you broaden the license out to other
Things that
documents.
we could, yes,
That way, nobody
Right.
is saying that, there's not
Right.
sufficient value for this document. But yeah,
Right.
that's a good way to do it. We'll look at that. We can draft something up.
So either way, September 13th, we should have a definitive
right.
Yep.
approach on how to assist.
You're welcome, thank you. Beth.
Yeah, thank you, Beth.
Thanks.
Frederick, you come provide financial report. Does anybody need to take a break? Restroom?
No, we're
Okay,
good.
very good. Frederick?
How are you? Thank you.
Thanks, Frederick. Thank you.
Thanks.
I'm good. I have my own.
Good evening, everybody. In the last meeting, I was not in. That is of July 26. We were supposed to present an update of the financial position for the first 6 months. So what I've done is to actually add one additional month. So I will be presenting for the first 7 months of this year. First of all, I would like to highlight on our revenues. You have all been getting the mortgage tax report from the county, and I'm happy to report that for the first 7 months of this year, we have grossed at $717,000. That is going to give us a net of $660,000 out of a budget of $450,000. So already you can see that we are in excess of our budgeted amount by $110,000 for the first 7 months. If we average what we have received, we are supposed to be allocated, the monthly revenue mortgage tax is $94,000, and if we prorate to the rest of the year, I'm projecting an excess of $678,000. Of course, anything can happen, as we saw. In June, we had $123,000, and then in July, it went down to $54,000. So we'll continue to keep our fingers crossed, but if we use an average, that is my estimation.
So why wouldn't we take a more conservative approach? So the average has been $94,000 per month, but if you're only doing $54,000, and we did see a big increase in both people buying homes and also refinancing, and it seems to be kind of scaling back a little bit. A more conservative approach would be something, I would think, in what you're seeing now, which is what, $55,000 per month? So if you're more conservative with that, I mean, you still have a significant amount of surplus, right? But instead of being it's $678, right? You'd be something less than that, because what you would take a look at is if you took $55,000 over 5 months, that would say you're at $275 plus the $660 would get you $935. Budget was $450, so you'd be approximately $485, call it $500,000 versus $678. The only thing I'm saying to you, Frederick, is you might be a little too aggressive on the $94,000 if you assume to get to your $678. I think I would probably take a look at it, see where the last bill was, or somewhere maybe in between the 94 and the 55,000, and take that approach when you look at your excess. Again, what we don't want to do is, show more money than we have, because we're going to take a look at that, and we may spend some money at it knowing we have, or thinking we have more money in the A fund than we really do. So we just want to I think we want to be careful with that, that's all. So I would take a more conservative approach.
That is certainly true. We could do that. I just remember that in the month of May, we thought we were going down. We got about 111,000, and then in June it jumped up. So this is the first time in July that we've seen a significant reduction, but point well taken. There's no harm in being
Yeah, we would expect
conservative.
it to start slowing down a little bit.
Yeah, there's no harm. Rental of real property, we have seen a collection of 148,000 for the first 7 months out of a budgeted 240,000. And if we are to project to the rest of the year with an average of 21,000 per month, that would give us 12,000 at the end of the year. Now, this mortgage tax and rental of real property are the only two major revenue items that I was able to project and access because, in the A fund, the rest are coming about either at 100% or less than 100%. So the other revenue items in the A fund that is still a bit of concern is the court fees and fines, whereby even though we saw an increase from June to July, from 14,000 to 24,000, and now we are at 103,000, meaning that we are averaging 14,500. At the end of the year, we might still result in a shortfall of 58,000 from
And
the
I'll
origin-
interrupt. In discussions with Chris at the court, thinks that it will at least break even, if not be in excess of our budgeted amount based on what is being processed now and the way that the court is working.
Well, now the courts are more open up, so they-
Well, it's all open up. The backlog is quite significant,
up
and they're
there.
Right.
processing
It's
it
very
very
significant.
hard. So I expect us to at least meet budget, if not greater than that.
Let's hope so.
Oh, it doesn't matter, actually.
Yeah, no.
We're sitting here talking about nickels and dimes.
You're
We're
right.
going to be $700,000 above our anticipated. Yeah.
Well, I think, as I said before, I think that's an aggressive approach because he's assuming $94,000 average.
Right, but even if you don't assume that, you're still going
But
to
if you
be
do 55,000, you're still $450,000, $500,000.
plus the 120,000 from the other lines.
Previously, pre-COVID, we were running, around 80,000 or so for mortgage tax, right, Frederick? I mean, it never really dropped down much lower than that, but that's what we're doing in the pre-COVID period of time. And you look at now, there's no available units of any type, in the market, and people are still refinancing, so
In
they're
the,
trying to sell.
In the mid-2000s, 2005, 2006, which in my experiences, we're looking at roughly the same type of boom levels of
Which we have to be
sales.
real careful.
Yes.
But that's exactly what happened. You had
Same thing
2008.
happened.
Yep.
So,
People
Again,
bought
that's-
these houses for twice the
Oh, yeah.
price, then the values dropped, they were upside down, and people walked away.
That's
and-
right.
but, and
That's
those
our
numbers,
concern.
I mean, this town did fairly well. They did not go hog wild, but town of Hyde Park, I believe, had a $2 million surplus in mortgage tax one year. So there were really big, numbers. And, and then the other thing here is I don't think this really hits on any big particular commercial sales, at least in this
Right,
year.
right.
So,
And that's
that-
why I
what
said
you gotta
take,
look at is
Yeah.
some very high, when high-value properties flip, it creates a blip.
Yeah.
and that's why I said take a more conservative approach to
no,
this.
I
Yeah,
totally
that's
agree.
right.
Even if you left it at,
Also, we'll
whatever
be-
the lowest month was for the year and projected that out.
And that's what the 55,000 is.
Yeah.
Which is what I suggested.
So looking at the other revenue items in other funds, building permits, we have collected 214,000. We are averaging 31,000. Projected excess 46,000 at the end of the year. Same for safety inspection fees. We have collected 48,000. Budget 40,000. We are averaging 7,000. Our projected excess is 44,000. Zoning fees, our projected excess is 20,000. And last but not least, I don't know whether in the last meeting you were made aware that we received the first installment of the American Rescue Plan Act stimulus funding, $1,129,028.06.
So we deposited this money in our A fund, accorded it to other federal aid, A4089. And just today I received another email that we will be getting an additional $9,219.11 on top of this, on top of the town of Wappinger allocation of $2,258,000. So this is the 9,000 is going to be additional. So we have the money. What I decided to do was move it in a capital account, because one of the eligible uses is investment in water and sewer. So now it's in a capital account. I moved it from the A fund. So once the town board decides on how to go about appropriating or using that money, then
And
we'll track its use.
We have the
from-
check in hand, correct?
It's deposited.
Deposit already, correct?
It's already
Yeah, we,
Okay.
yeah.
So that's 50% of the American Rescue Plan funding,
Yes.
correct?
That's right.
So the next one will be released in summer of 2022.
So have we determined the formula by which the village receives a portion?
They determined that already.
They've already gotten,
Yeah,
theirs.
so
They got
This is
their own.
clear of the village.
This is us only.
Right.
This is also,
This is net net?
Yes.
Yep.
So how much did the village get, do we know?
I,
I think it was about 500,
500,000?
520,
Now,
yeah.
that was for the 2 years, wasn't it, or, can't remember. Yeah, I think it was 500,000 for the
Wasn't it about 2.4, 2.5 in total, and then the village got a piece of that?
Right.
So was it determined based on ratables
On
or?
population, I think.
Population?
Based on population.
Oh, based on population.
Now, Frederick, the $9,000 additional, is that, what was that adjustment? Was that for the 2020 numbers or no?
So this 9,219 is on top of the 2.2 million allocation to the town. So 50% of that will be getting shortly maybe this month or the
But
next.
you had said that there was an additional 9,000?
Yes, that I received an email today that they were.
What was that, census adjustment?
I don't know why they.
Yeah, that's probably
but-
what it was.
yeah.
Because we went up.
Yeah, we went up for the first time.
Oh, okay. Yeah, maybe that's the
Did we?
reason.
I
Yes.
We went up like 1,500 people,
Yep.
which in 20 years, I think we went up 1,504 people.
We're consistent.
Yep.
Yeah, so maybe that's probably what the 9 grand is. Then.
That's what I'm thinking.
Right. Okay.
So our summary revenue, as you can see in the A fund, 3.4 million received. In the B fund, 727,000, and in the highway, 3.6 million. Moving on to expenditure highlights on page 2. I've just highlighted there some of the main items that or main expenditure lines. Telephone, 26,000. We have this miscellaneous line. I know you have questions about it, A16, 2450. I did send an itemized or a breakdown of what has been spent there. But I know at the beginning of the year we had some COVID cleaning expenses amounting to 10,800. Those are plumbing repairs of 2,900. And replacing the fire system, panic and smoke alarms, 8,800. I know there's a resolution that we'll be discussing to request movement of funds from fund balance into this line so that we get them back not over budgeted. Attorney fees, we are at 81,000. HVAC, 33,000. Engineers, 42,000. And then A4010, this is the public health personnel line. The town board requested that we create a specific line for it. So what we did was whoever was there initially at the beginning of the year, we moved that expense from wherever they were paid into this line. And then the person who took over in May, from that time to now. So that's where the 18,000 is coming from. So in the budget, in the resolution for budget transfer, which of course we'll discuss later on, we are requesting 34,000 to be moved from fund balance, which is basically the rate of pay of $19 an hour times 35 hours a week times 52. Summary of expenditure.
Let me just ask you one question.
Yeah.
Just the American Rescue Plan funding, are COVID expenses, operational COVID expenses eligible to be paid out of that money or no?
So the COVID, when we say COVID expenses, you mean like alcohol wipes or screens?
Yeah, the $10,800 in deep cleaning expenses for COVID purposes, the $18,000 for public health receptionist, that kind of stuff. I mean, not that we need to do that because we have enough fund balance to do it.
That's, I mean, I haven't looked, my understanding was that was a permissible charge.
Was?
I believe it was.
Okay.
And then there was also another provision where you could use the ARP funds to reimburse lost revenue.
Right, right.
However, it's a very, very complicated
Yeah.
formula, and I don't even know, I mean, we probably lost revenue on the A fund, but we made revenue on.
It's going to be,
It's not really geared for
our operation.
town,
For cities,
New
I
York
can
State.
see it. I can
Right.
see it for cities and villages. I can see that.
Right.
We have money, so I'm not sitting here trying to rob Peter to pay Paul from this line to that line because we have fund balance to absorb these nominal expenses. But my question was just from a hypothetical standpoint, if we didn't have money, could we use the American Rescue Plan money, which I guess we could. However, I personally believe it should be put towards capital planning and capital expenses so that we can further the town for decades to come.
Yeah, sure, water, sewer,
Agreed.
infrastructure.
Right.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
Thank you.
All right, so as of July 31, 2021, I've given you a list of our cash at bank balances. If you add all this, it totals 21.1 million. And on page 3 is my projections of the estimated fund balances at the end of the year. In the A fund, I have 1.5 million, but you can see that it's itemized. There's non-spendable, some amounts reserved for debt, an amount reserved assigned for the 2021 budget. Remember when we were doing the budget, we used fund balance to finance part of the budget. And then the unassigned portion that I'm projecting at the end of the year is 856,000. In the Part Town B fund, we have 6 million total, and the assigned portion of that is 5.4 million. The others are non-spendable, reserve for debt, and miscellaneous reserve. Highway, the same itemization you see there. Total projected fund balance, 3.2 million. Water funds, this is total water, total of the water districts combined, 1.3 million. And lastly, the total sewer funds combined, 3.3 million.
So if you compare this to May, when the last time that you did the financials, we're in a significantly better position. I mean, if you look at the A fund balance, you're roughly, as you said, 1.573. Last time we were 1,118,000, so a 400 plus K increase in the balance, which is significant. B fund was about 900K, and then DB is another 600. So phenomenal numbers here. I mean, we're in a significant, sound financial position, and we have some very, very healthy fund balances. So it's a great job here.
Yeah, I just want to clarify that in May, I did not present the total. I only presented the unassigned portion of the A fund, because the others are, you cannot really use them as such because they are either reserved or unspendable. So,
but I'm just doing a May 31st versus July. I'm just saying the fund balance has increased pretty significant, which is great news.
Yeah.
Frederick, real quick, in the capital funds, didn't you say the ARPA went into the capital?
Yes.
That should be, what, 2.4 in there?
No, I moved it in
It's only
August.
half.
I moved the money in August, last week.
He's got it in A fund capital.
Yeah, it came into A fund July 20, yeah.
From a cash balance perspective, yes, he does. He's got the 1129 in the cash balance, if you look at the cash at the bank, but from a fund balance, A fund, it's not in there, it's in a separate capital fund, correct?
Yeah, but remember, I think he was asking, why is the capital cash lower, because I said that I moved it in the capital, but that was in August, not in July, so that's why it's in A
Right.
fund,
Okay.
end of July.
It's an A fund capital account.
Right.
Restricted.
But if you look at the cash balance, it's clearly in there.
The money's there,
The money's in there.
but it just can't be spent,
Correct.
Yeah.
Yep.
which is good.
Yep.
So that's basically the end of my presentation. Do you have any other questions?
Parkland Trust?
Yes, so as of July 31, 2021, we are at 433,000. So we are tracking it. We are tracking the spending like the Spook Hill, Challenger Field. So I actually created a capital account where I'm tracking all these spendings for this capital. Spook Hill has its own account. Challenger Field has its own account. So what we are doing is moving the money as we spend from Parklands into the capital so that we can really see what these expenses are.
So the one thing your 433,000 doesn't include is the $20,000 we allocated towards Bill's Sergeant Palmetier, right? So we
Right.
should really include that.
Yeah, yes.
And
yes.
remove that from the fund balance, correct?
Right. So that would reduce it to 413,000 if we put the 20,000 there.
And Jim, we're restricted on what we can spend. Like we have some allocation of money here, 5,000 towards Little League and 5,000 towards soccer, but it's restricted on what we can use that for. If you look at Frederick's Parkland Trust, because we did set money aside.
Well, I thought the money for, now, we're talking about,
So what I'm talking about is way back when, going back into last year, we had put some money, set aside money for both Little League and soccer improvements, $5,000 each, right?
well, that would elapse
So,
at the end of the year. So. at the
because
end-
we're still carrying that balance on here is my point.
Oh, we are?
Yes.
Okay.
So my point is, it's restricted on the use of that.
If it's a Parkland Trust,
So as an example, right, if they want to, I think we had this discussion, so if they wanted to get a shed does not qualify as something you can use for Parkland
well, a
Trust.
shed, if it's a capital asset, if it's fixed to the ground, would qualify, and then the ownership, the town has to own it. The town can't spend, $5,000 for a Little League shed, but it can spend $5,000 for
A town
a shed
shed.
owned by the town, used by Little League.
Okay.
So, again, a shed, whereas, if it was a movable, the.
I'm just trying to get
storage boxes
examples,
or
just trying to get
something.
examples of where the funds can be used, because if there's improvements we can make that aren't covered on anything today. And again, we do have, the $5,000 set aside for both Little League and soccer. I want to, if they can use the funds and
Well,
it
they
fits the
can't
guidelines.
use-
I know they can't.
They can't use.
They
the
can't
town-
use it, but we can buy something for them as long as the
Well, it's not,
town owns
it's
it.
for the town park.
For the town park. Okay.
Right.
So, if you're buying a bench, if you're buying.
I'm just trying to find out what are
If you're gonna paint
what are the uses that
something
you can
or
use the
something
money
like
for,
that.
that's all. So in case they come to us and say, hey, listen, can you do this for us? It'll be owned by the town. That's perfectly
Yeah,
legal.
if it's a shed,
It's got to be capital expense.
Right, it has to be a capital expense, so like, a shipping, roll-on, roll-off shipping container would not qualify because it's a piece of equipment. So you couldn't use it to buy a lawnmower, you couldn't use it to buy, you could use it to buy fencing, you could use it to buy.
Okay.
something that's
Infrastructure.
Permanently attached.
Town owned.
Right.
Town owned, correct?
Correct, the town would have to buy it.
Okay.
Or the town owns it and we can improve on it.
Okay.
It would, have to be affixed onto
Right.
town property.
Right.
And actually, it has to be in a park.
Right, like painting graffiti on the side of a building that is owned by the town in a
Yeah,
park.
that would probably qualify.
Okay.
No, that shouldn't, right?
I mean, painting gets to be kind of the gray.
That's maintenance. We have
Yeah.
money, though.
That's
I
kind
mean,
of, yeah,
That's
money
what I
for that
mean,
for
it's something
Steve,
the
under
town
Steve.
can pay.
we
to
have
fixed.
funding for those things, but I mean, capital expenses, that,
It
you
would
know,
be
a
the
shed
roof.
that's affixed to the ground, you know, items that are gonna last
Right.
5 years or longer, things like that, that are, you know, tangible or,
Right.
or infrastructure. Correct me if I'm wrong, yeah.
Okay.
I mean, you know, resurfacing tennis courts, you know, putting in backboards, things like that.
Thank you.
Okay, Frederick.
Thank you. Thank you, Frederick.
Thank you, Frederick.
You're welcome.
Okay, move into resolutions. Maybe Frederick, you stay up there. It's 2021-104. It's a resolution authorizing the transfer of funds.
Yeah, so this is to request movement of or appropriate or provide additional appropriation to certain lines in the budget. One of these lines is the town board equipment. This line is, originally was for town board radios. We have 4 radios. We are paying $156 per month to lease these radios. But then at the beginning of the year, we bought 5 mini laptops for the town board. So we, if we do not replenish this, it's not going to be possible to continue paying for those, for the lease for the 4 radios. Then we have 10-10-102. The town board approved the position of municipal communication assistant. So we are asking for $10,100, which is basically at the rate of $19 an hour for 38 weeks at a maximum of 14 hours a week.
So this, that'll cover the period from basically July through the end of the year at 14 hours at $19 an hour?
Yeah, for 38 weeks from the time, I think it was May 24th that the town board approved the position. Then we have telephone, as you may have seen already in the itemized. We have the landlines. We have a new phone system. We have a fax. But then there are also cell phone expenses for various members of staff, Verizon, and other companies. I think we discussed this in one of the prior meetings that in the next, with the next budget, we may try to reallocate or have each department have their own cell phone lines and fund those. But in the meantime, I think that if we need about $26,500. Miscellaneous, originally, I was requesting $47,500 based on the fact that at the half-year mark, we had spent about the same. So I figured maybe we need about the same for the rest of the year. But given that we have seen that the reason why this was like this is because of the unexpected expenses like the COVID cleaning, maybe we can reduce this to $30,000 for now. In case we need more, we can come back later. Bottled water, I think that's self-explanatory, $2,500. Water testing is a requirement by the county. And then we have the public health personnel. I've explained that. Highway equipment, just $100. And then last but not least, the highway office trailer. So we had an office trailer used by the highway superintendent in the past. And we had a contract with Scott's, Williamson Scott's. At the end of the we decided to do away with this trailer because it was not being used. And then they said we had to pay some amount of money. So we went back and forth with the lawyer. We disputed some charges, and at the end of it, it was agreed after they adjusted their bill that $8,150 was appropriate. Because they had actually said the town was delinquent, so we had to involve Jim.
So
Jim
this
is
is
aware.
not related to any damage to the unit, correct? This is just a balance that we owe? So there was no, this is not, this 8150 is not for any damage that was incurred to the trailer, correct?
No, it's just that
They
the
removed those charges.
Yeah,
Okay.
that was for the balance of the lease permit.
Right.
Because we terminated the lease early.
Right.
exactly.
And when's this, is this from 2020 or 2021?
2019.
19.
2019?
Yeah,
Yes.
but the books of 2019 are already closed, so if we are to pay for it, we have to use current year. Maybe when the audit is done for 2021, they'll adjust it to prior year adjustment, but
They have a
we need a line
legitimate demand for this money.
So it just took a little longer to figure out what the dispute was, settled.
Well,
This is
yeah, I
the-
mean, it was back and forth, there's normally negotiations, right?
Yeah.
I got you.
That's what it was.
Uh,
So, actually, we came out much better than we could have been, but
Frederick, I do have one more question for you in that.
Right.
A4010.100, the public health receptionist, that's
Yeah.
paid through the end of this year, or does that cut off
that
in
should be
August?
So as we speak, we have spent $18,000. So the 34 would be for January to December, because there's currently zero budget for that line. We used to use a line in the B fund for the previous employee, but she was covering the reception. So since we created a new line for the reception, for the public health, the 4010, we have had to reallocate that expenditure on her pay from the other line into this one, which was about 11,000 from January to May. And then we had a new employee takeover. So basically what we are requesting is the pay rate is $19 an hour for 35 hours a week times 52 weeks. I don't know whether we will be filling the position to the end of the year. That is up to the town board to decide, but it's prudent to just request for the full year salary.
So this covers,
January to December
Of this year,
of this year.
for the
yes.
whole year.
For the whole year.
And we discussed that during budget deliberations, we would talk about next year.
So I think that
So we
concludes.
have a motion to approve these transfers.
Move.
Second. All in favor? Aye. Nays and abstentions? Nay?
Nay.
Call roll call vote. Mr. Clerk?
Aye.
No.
No.
yes.
Yes. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Frederick.
Welcome.
Much appreciated. Next item is Resolution 2021-107. It's a resolution accepting undertaking secured by cash deposit in connection with Red Cedar Arborist, Inc. Barbara, you want to just briefly mention this, discuss it?
Red Cedar had a site plan approved, and they did the work on New Hackensack Road. They came in to get their CO, and there were quite a few items missing from what was approved. It turns out that the owner has no current determination to do these things. So he's coming back to the planning board, but he needed a CO to operate and to do some financial business. So we gave him a CO based on the fact that he'll be back in September to the planning board to remove those items. They're insignificant, and he put up a $10,000 bond to assure that he'll be back to change his amended site plan. So we're just asking you to accept that until the changes are made and a new site plan is approved.
Move.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Any nays or abstentions? Seeing none, the motion passed. Next item was 2021-108. We've already approved that resolution. The following resolution is 2021-109, resolution authorizing a memorandum of agreement with Teamsters Union Local 445 regarding building inspectors.
Move.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Any nays or abstentions? Seeing none, the motion passes.
Just one for 109.
Thank you.
I believe the resolution would be retroactive to July 1. Was that the
Right.
determination of the board?
I believe that's what we
Wasn't it?
discussed, yeah.
Move to amend the resolution, indicate July 1st as the starting point.
Second.
Second it.
Okay, motion second, all in favor?
Aye.
Any nays or abstentions? Seeing none, the motion passed. Thank you. Okay, and the final resolution on this list is 2021-110. That's the acknowledgement of the correspondence log.
So one item with respect to the correspondence log, there is a request in there for a rezone petition regarding property on the corner of Losi and
Myers.
Corn. That was a property that was originally a residential property, it was zoned
Yep.
residential,
Came for a rezone.
came for a rezone.
What do we zone it?
CC, conservation commercial.
Conservation commercial, because the individual is going to run a business out of
It
that.
was an accounting office
Yes,
or?
so we zoned it so that he can run his business strictly office.
Correct. And then COVID hit.
So, right now, they're in contract, someone wants to use it as a residence.
Which is defaulting back to the previous zoning.
Right.
So that's the request. Barbara and I just had a discussion regarding this with Dan Kohler from Hudson Land Design. And what might be more appropriate is to add a residential use in the conservation, single-family residential, to be a permitted use in the conservation commercial district. There's a stretch of 9D, which already has, which is zone conservation commercial, which already has a lot
Right.
of residential properties. Rather than having this property flip
Back
back
and
and forth
forth,
every time
right,
it changes
yeah.
hands.
Plus, it's got a parking lot. What do we do with that
Right.
now?
So well, I mean, if you use it as a residence, then, I mean, it's a single-family
big
residence.
Well, my
Driveway.
point was, if we went back to residential, then the parking lot would be,
Right.
have to be removed. If you add the residential use to the existing zone, then the parking lot, if they want to take it out, they can. Otherwise,
Yeah.
it wouldn't be an issue.
Yeah, so I think in the grand scheme of things, for, good planning purposes, I think that what would make more sense would be adding a single-family residence
I
as a
agree.
permitted
Yeah.
use
Yeah.
in the CC zone.
that's right.
I agree with
We
that.
just have to check that doesn't blow anything up in other districts.
If you could look into that and get that back for the next meeting, that would be helpful.
That would be great.
And what Barbara and I discussed was, we had the text amendment regarding self-storage and possible welding, so we could theoretically lump all three of them together.
If you could, was that also a COP or, oh no, this one is what is this?
CC.
This one's a CC.
Yeah.
Two CCs, the welding.
Two
Oh,
CC,
right.
right, they own the
This
CC.
would be CC, and
Okay.
then
Right.
storage would be COP.
Right.
If we could get those items back actionable for the
That
next
would be
meeting, that would
good.
be helpful.
And so what that would mean is at the next meeting, we would introduce a local law to amend the zoning code to make those changes.
Sure.
And then, and then the board can, consider that local law, introducing the local law
Right.
at that time. And we'd probably set up a public hearing for the first meeting in October.
Just make sure you look at the other existing
I know.
We'll look at these
Yeah.
zones in their entirety.
inadvertent issues. Okay, thank you. So I'll move to accept the correspondence log.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any nays or abstentions? Seeing none, motion passed. Thank you. Jessica, you wanted to discuss one item in executive session because of some contract discussions. Then you want to address the fund transfer for the education portion.
So the first item, of course, is the one that we're going to have to discuss in executive session because we have a contract pending for that. The second one is a transfer of funds, which actually isn't for the festival. I sent it out to everybody today. I'm looking for a $300 budget transfer for reimbursement for conference and training. The National Parks and Recreation Association is hosting their annual conference virtually. Something I would probably never get to attend. It's usually held out of state across the country and things like that. So this is.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any nays or abstentions?
So,
I'm going to give you I have the.
so she's asking for a $300 budget transfer.
For
She'll give you
training.
the details.
Yep. And this one's yours.
You keep us
Okay,
honest.
thank you. Before going into executive session to discuss the contract issue and up to date, bring up to date on one or two HR-related matters, I did want to just briefly share with the town the latest information on COVID. I think it's important to update it, and this is based on today's briefing with County Executive Marcus Molinaro and the whole group of supervisors and mayors and, and his staff. Right now, there's unfortunately 463 deaths from COVID. That's up from 447 on August the 1st. 774 active cases, down slightly from August 19th. But there is the expectation that based on our public health agency's advice that it's going to spike up, and the concern is whether or not it spikes to 1,000. 32 hospitalizations. Right now, 10 of them are in ICU. At Vassar, there are 8, and 3 are intubated. And so the numbers are going up in that case. The positive rate of transmission, and this is over the 7-day average, we're seeing 76 new cases a day, just hovering at around 5%, 4.99%. So it's being monitored extremely closely based on really the hospitalizations and the serious nature of it. Right now, the policies are to encourage based on the federal government's requirements. The state has adopted, what the federal government is recommending masks, to be worn. We are seeing, though, some good increase in the vaccinations. This is expected to increase now that the Pfizer vaccination has been approved. But there have been 7,000 first doses of vaccination administered in the month of August so far. So we're seeing some good uptick in that area. 72.7% of the population 18 and older has received at least one dose. As to the new cases, the ages of 20 to 39 are the largest number of new cases that the county is seeing, quite significant. And, of the hospitalizations, 86% were either not vaccinated or partial. And there are some of the other remainder of the percentage that were health-related because of pre-existing clauses. The COVID shot pop-up clinics are going to continue in the county. As I mentioned earlier, we are looking at some of our community events to try to have those sponsored as we did in the past. So please, be safe, remain well, during the next few weeks, which the county is expecting, in our case, to be perhaps the most tough, weeks going forward. Again, there is good news in that the county is experiencing much better number in the sense of lower as compared to many parts of the country. But I do encourage you to continue to maintain good previous COVID protocol and try to get vaccinated where you feel that you can. So please continue to stay healthy, and well. We have, Bill, do you want to, again, just mention about the 9/11 ceremony? Just
Sure.
on the timing and, you know.
Sure, and just briefly regarding what you just said, I see this going over 1,000 cases next week in Dutchess County, looking at the projections that are out today. The COVID Delta variant is more contagious, and it has been said that if you are not vaccinated, you will get it. That's what they're saying. So I understand that folks have personal medical decisions on if they would like to be vaccinated or not, but my position is that if you can get vaccinated and you are comfortable getting vaccinated, please consider that, especially if you are in any way vulnerable or have any medical issues, because this wave coming in is expected to peak in the third and fourth week in September before it goes down, and we're averaging a significant number of cases per day, as the supervisor just mentioned. There will be a vaccination site at the Dutchess County Fair next week on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, which Dutchess County is facilitating the State Department of Health to deliver Pfizer at the Dutchess County Fair. So if you've been waiting for the FDA approval, which was just received today, I believe, or yesterday, that will be available 50 doses per day over a 3-day period. So if you would like to get vaccinated at the Dutchess County Fair, you can do that. Obviously, you can also get vaccinated in a lot of other places here, in the town of Wappingers has 3 or 4 different locations you can go. So that is my personal recommendation, but it is a personal decision for you folks to make. We're not trying to strong-arm you or force you, but please be safe. Relative to the September 11th ceremony, it is 8:30 a.m. on September 11th. This 20th anniversary, as I mentioned earlier, it's going to be a solemn yet brief ceremony, as we have done each year. It is really not a time for anyone to make any keynote addresses. Respectfully, it is a time for us to pause and remember that dark day. There are some additional things being added this year because it is the 20th anniversary. Some special tributes. And again, as I said before, we are unfortunately and tragically in the wake of the fall of Afghanistan right now, which many gave their lives for that country and our country. So Sergeant Palmatier is one of them. So we will be making sure that we pause, especially because of that. So that's September 11th at 8:30 a.m. I hope you can be there. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any other new business comments, anyone?
Just one quick item.
Okay.
There is out at Robinson Lane, there is a field that is named in honor of Ralph Holt's son, who passed away. The signage for that particular field is approaching, if not more, 30 years old. I have a constituent that approached me who would like to spend the money to have that sign replaced. This individual, who will keep anonymous at this point, had been an educator of Brian Holt and wants to do his part to ensure the legacy remains, and especially since we're blessed to still have Ralph with us, would like to get this done. We just need to get through some red tape here. I'm not going to do it right now, but we need to figure out who owns that sign. We need to determine who has jurisdiction over that sign so that we can get this thing moving. And we'll talk outside the meeting about that, but this gentleman and family members would like to take it upon themselves to rejuvenate that space and make it special for 30 more years. So just wanted to get that on the record so we can have a conversation offhand and offline, I should say, and get that done. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. Any other comments? Okay, have a motion to go into executive session to discuss contract and a HR matter.
Move.
Second.
Motion second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any nays or abstentions? Seeing none, motion passed. Thank you.